So apparently, I was late. In case you came late, Trump was found guilty. I assume I'm still catching up on the news right now. I'll share with you my thoughts. I'm listening right now to an X space. Sharing this now what I'm listening to.
A witch hunt trial. I did nothing wrong. They've raided my home, arrested me, took my mugshot, and now they've just convicted me. Crooked Joe Biden needs to get the message right here, right now, that his chances of a second term end today. But for that to happen, our media pushback must be so massive, it will go down in history. We must make Joe Biden regret ever coming after us. Before the day is over, I'm calling on 10 million pro-Trump patriots to chip in and say, I stand with President Trump. My end of month fundraising deadline is just days away. So at this dark hour, I'm humbly asking for you to please stand with me now. I know with you by my side, we will win back the White House and make America great again. Donald
Trump
J. Trump
has been convicted.
So this is already blowing up. This is already backfiring. And it's exactly as predicted that this would have backfired. It was obvious that this was going to be one of the biggest political mistakes that the left could have. The thing that people forget, conservative renaissances, these reactions to the left, it always takes the left overplaying their hand and doing so egregiously because conservatives, right-wingers, America First types, we all have churches, we have jobs, we have families to take care of. We have things that matter more than politics. So they have to do something fundamentally egregious to get people to stand up, whether it was the lockdowns, whether it's this now, right? Something has to happen to galvanize the people. And boy, did the left just galvanize every single person to the right of Elizabeth Warren. There is going to be a conservative renaissance from this. So at least take that silver line.
I'm trying to set that stream up also.
Well, can I jump in too? Sorry, Mike.
No, I just want to say real quick. Like, somebody give me a time frame. Like, what do we see as far as sentencing goes, and like, what's, for those of us who are not lawyers, what's next? What's the next step that we should be looking for?
Yeah. So first, we have to see whether or not he's going to be remanded or not. If he's remanded, then the sentencing is going to come quicker because he's in custody counting days. If he's not, which I haven't heard anything from Fox yet, so if anyone can let me know if he's going to be remanded or not. If he's not, there's really not a rush because the sentencing is probably, Trump has no criminal history. Trump has nonviolent crimes. These are paper crimes. So, odds are it's going to be some sort of probation that he's going to be given. It could be 24, 36 months of probation. But
I think they're going to do
I would guesstimate no sooner than 120 days and no later than 6 months out, they'll have the sentencing. Because they have to do a PSI, which is a pre-sentence investigation. That's got to be sent to the parties. The parties will object on what they don't want or what they think should be included in the PSI. And then after that is done, then both parties have to prepare for their sentencing.
Give me my thoughts in a few minutes.
In this case, could take at least a day or two in sentencing. So,
Crypto, if they send him out, like if they're doing
I don't want him in
exactly
jail.
like you just said,
They want him to.
And they really are just doing this to get the convicted felon term on his name for the rest of his campaign, and they're not really that worried with any kind of penalty or sentencing phase.
Hey, listen, that was the play from the beginning. That's exactly what this was all about. They know they're playing lawfare. They know that you can indict a ham sandwich. They knew that they had all this. I mean, this is all part of the plan. They don't care about. I mean, they would like to see him in jail, probably a lot of them, but they don't really care about that. They all they care about is defeating him on November.
I mean, this is.
Hey, I got a sentencing date for you guys. It's July 11th at 10 a.m. Judge Merchant just released it. All motions due no later than June 13th.
All right, so he pushed it out 45 days.
I'm not good at math.
Yeah, it's about 45 days. So, Mike, what you'll see is, when he puts him on probation, you'll have to see. I'm assuming it's not going to be jail or prison time, but on the probation, you'll have to see what they do with him. There's different levels of probation. Does he have to, if he wants to go campaign, does he need permission from the court every time? Does he need permission only from probation?
He's a felon now!
There's certain levels, and they can kind of bootstrap him down. If, you just can't go to the airport down the road from me where Trump lives, hop on his plane and go. He has to motion to the court. He has to ask probation. So, how much are they going to try to lock him down? in the next, I guess, 6 to 8 months, right? Because after that, after November 6th, after that, it's all over.
So dumb.
So
You'll notice it's right before the
This is
RNC
amazing.
convention, right? So again, the RNC
This is so
convention
good.
is the 15th. So they made sure to set this up
I'm gonna
right
start
before the
Rumble in 1
RNC
minute.
convention,
I have to wait
right?
for
Which
the
is
time to
usually
change
like a
fuck money.
huge momentum boost. This is 100% like the whole point of this is not about justice, right? We've talked for days about
not
all
about
the
justice.
different ways that they have stretched the law, the novel legal theories that they came up with
I was
in
invited
order
to be a
like
speaker
get
on
this
this
result
stage.
out of a
Shout out to
very
you guys.
small group of rogue lawyers out of New York. Listen, fuck New York. Like
guys, he's coming out to speak.
New York City, fuck New York City, fuck everybody. Like seriously, if you're doing business with anybody in New York, stop it
Dustin,
right
he's coming
now.
out to speak.
Wait, who's coming out to speak? President
Trump.
Trump. I got it right now.
Hold on just a second. We see President Trump now. He is walking out. Let's listen.
By a conflicted judge who is corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. It wouldn't give us a menu change or at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area.
All right, I'm clicking
This was
on
a rigged,
Rumble.
disgraceful trial.
Oh shit! Where did it go? Hold on.
And they know what happened here, and everybody
It should be
knows
available.
what
You should be able to
happened
see on
here.
Rumble now.
You have a Soros
Just one
backed
time.
DA and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man.
We're listening to an X Space.
It's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end. We will win. Because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now. From prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists. And they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
All right, that's it.
Go ahead, Dustin. Pick up what you were with. What
This
you were
is
saying.
so amazing for him.
So
This
this
is. I'm
is
so happy.
right,
for
and you
him.
heard Trump say
This is so good. for him.
George Soros has weaponized prosecutorial discretion, right, by funding and raising up these lawyers into high profile positions where they can use that like discretion in order to attack us, right? Marchin's the next up for Marchin is Bannon, right? Like let's just start lining up the people that we disagree with politically and who are effective and start taking them down one by one with this small group of lawyers. New York has to pay a noticeable price for what they've done here, right? Cut them off economically. The left did it to Georgia and North Carolina about men and women's bathrooms. So if you're a Republican, find some freaking nuts for once in your freaking life and stand up against this shit. What they're doing to us is trying to kill us. They're trying to starve us. They're trying to deny us our freedoms. They're not playing politics. It's happening all over the world. Look at Lula in freaking Brazil, right? They are criminalizing people who disagree with them. And this is the perfect example. And you are not nearly pissed off enough. You don't hate this government. You don't hate the Soros people nearly as much as you should because they want you dead. They hate you. So are you going to step up and do something? And I'll add this. If you're a right-wing district attorney, if you're an attorney general, and you are not going after the George Soros nonprofits, the Open Societies Foundation, and everything else, then who the fuck are you? Get the fuck out of the way so real people can get in here and fight the freaking war that needs to be fought. This is unfucking acceptable.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to give a call to action, especially since we have the great Scott Pressler on stage as well. Yes, we need to get moving on this, and we need to make sure that President Trump and his allies are getting into positions of power so that way we can take this country back. And I'm not saying that's for, I'm not saying run for office. That may be for you. I'm not saying get a job in a political realm. That may not be for you. I'm not saying go to law school and become an attorney. That may not be for you. But I'm going to be clear. There's something that everyone here, no matter who you are, can do. I've never met anyone who's incapable of doing something to save this republic. All right. So I'm an attorney. I do some civil rights law. Chris Wiest, who was just speaking, that's my employer. When I almost went to jail for going to church in 2020, Chris represented me, and we were able to put a stop to that. That was just a small thing. All I did was go to church. I was a very small part of that. This is going to be a landslide victory. Scott Pressler has started a movement of registering people to vote. Good people like Cliff Maloney, they're going out and making sure that Republicans take back the mail-in voting in Pennsylvania through the Pennsylvania Chase, right? You've got Charlie Kirk and the good people at Turning Point Action who are taking over our college campuses, making sure that a conservative voice is out there.
Remove him for a second
so
so
much
I can answer
you
your
can
question.
do, whether that just be something as simple as just having a business that is.
You can't hear him now, right? It's just us. You can't. I hear them, but you can't hear them, right? I assume you can't hear them. This is something that's important for people to understand. What George Soros did was he funded a lot of district attorneys who were woke and willing to go along with his agenda. He funded their campaigns in order to enable them, to empower them to basically prosecute who they want. So it's his way of asserting his will on through lawfare by basically saying, I'm going to put people in places of power who have the complete executive decision to help them get elected to position of power where they're able to prosecute Trump or anyone that is a threat to the left.
Dewey, I'm not stepping foot in New York come hell or high water. There's no way I'm giving any economic activity for my friends in New York. Get the fuck out of that police state, right? Like, honestly, you want again, keep doing all the stuff that we're doing, right? The important work, the long-term, like, plays to win politically, but it's not enough. Like, there has to be real life consequences that are measurable and noticeable. Like, cut New York off, make them suffer.
No, hey, look, Dustin's spot on. Hey, real quick before we go to Scott, I want to go down to Kevin. I've been trying to get you up, Kevin. I want to get your feedback, bro. You're right in the middle of all this. What's your feeling about what Dustin's saying? What's your feedback on this whole thing, man?
Nah, look, Dustin, you're totally right, man. Cut off my city. Forget that New York is part of America right now, because I got news for you. The America you grew up in is not the America we're currently living in. Your country is different forever. Countries do not come back from shit like this. They don't come back from arresting their political opponents, because guess what? Now all rules are off. All rules of decorum and playing nice and bringing a knife to a gunfight, that's all fucking over. They're going to lock up the president of the United States. Moreover, I want to make something very clear. If Donald Trump just got convicted of 34 felonies,
they may
34 charges, why are they letting him go? Why are they letting him go? If he's that dangerous that he was just found guilty on 34 counts, they should have locked him up right there. They should have remanded him to custody. This is all bullshit. But let me explain something.
I'm not accepting that label.
This is different forever. The country you lived in 2 hours ago is no longer the country you live in. And you guys know I come in here and I laugh and I tell jokes and shit. We just watched the crossing of the Rubicon. We just watched our world become different, slightly different.
Yeah. Of what crime? What did he do?
Every governor.
What did he do?
Is now going to face the same.
No one knows.
And I don't want
no one knows.
Country where we lock up our.
That doesn't sound like the system works when no one knows.
That's what made us better than places like Russia.
No one knows what he did.
In the third world. That's what made
how he
America
falsified
different.
records when he wasn't.
Became just like the rest of
when
the world,
he wasn't.
Where brute power and brute force
in the office where anything's falsified, where there's no proof he knew anything. Where the main person
some guy
who
didn't like the defendant.
tied him to any of these crimes.
I mean,
was exposed
people
for
stopped
lying to the
believing in
jury that
criminal
convicted
justice
him.
system a long time ago
Exposed
for
for
a
lying
number
to the
of
very
reasons.
jury that
You can
convicted him.
cite the cases,
And then
you can cite
the
personal
judge
experience.
created jury
No one is
instructions,
going to
which
trust
basically said,
the
if you think he
American
did something
judicial
wrong,
system right now.
please
And I
just
feel
convict
bad
him.
for the
Just
people out
convict him.
there that actually try to do the right
That's not
thing,
a,
do
that's
the right
not a
job. But
system
Okay, guys,
that
this
works
is-
right now.
All right, guys, this is what we're going to do here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to merge with Mario Knopfler's space here right now. So that's what we're going to do. Go over to his space. The speakers that we have here are welcome to join us on stage over there.
I was invited to
but
Mario's
that's exactly
space.
what we're going to do right now.
Why are we going to a foreigner space?
Why are we going to Mario's space? Bull crap.
Why are we doing that?
Yeah, just keep them both going.
Tell him to come here.
Yeah. Why are we doing that? That makes no sense.
I
vote no.
Passport, guys. I lost my passport. I can't go to the foreign national space. Sorry.
Yeah. How about we just stick in an American room, Nick, that we built?
What do you think?
I've got Andrew Giuliani coming on with me at 7 p.m. if anyone's interested.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think a lot of people.
What do you
are
think?
Bad dog.
Dude,
want to
I'm
hear me
just,
join this
man,
space?
I'm so
Or Jim,
I'm so-
my bad, brother.
I'm so dejected right
I'm gonna
now.
put
Like,
a-
normally I'm the most white pill person, but this is above the line. What? So now he's got to ask the court's permission every time he wants to leave the city of New York. He's trapped in Trump Tower.
Hey, Kevin, let me get. I want to get your feedback on something real fast, but I want to ask
I don't
Scott
know.
because until Nick
It's
moves
an
the
interesting
room,
question.
we got Pressler here. I want to ask him real quick, Scott. What does this do as far as you going out and getting people registered to vote? Like, do you change your tactics at all with this? Like, is this like, are you going to start incorporating, what happened to Trump? Like, how do you see this playing out for you?
Thank you. Well, I think people need to really take a moment and go, okay, we're all angry.
They're asking me to join
we're
the panel.
frustrated. We understand what's happening. And these spaces are good for disseminating information. But ultimately, we must stay calm, we must stay focused, and we must turn our anger into positive action. And so I'm asking everyone in the space, if you're irate over what has happened today, register new voters. You must turn
I forgot how to
unregistered
handle.
people. You must get
This
out
is
the
Scott
independent
Pressler
voter
speaking now.
because anyone that is not registered to vote is more likely to vote for Donald Trump at this point. That's period. The
If you're
Democrats
not
sent out a
registered to
memo
vote, they'll vote for you if
telling
you're the Democrat.
their people to stop registering voters blindly. And furthermore, I've been very open about this. I just went to the DuPage
This guy has
County
registered more
Jail in
Republican
Illinois. I am
voters than
actively
any person in human
courting
history.
the inmate vote. I am actively courting the former felon vote. And if anybody knows any former felons in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the ultimate swing state, as long as you are no.
They shut down. All right, let's see. Let's get in there. I can't join from my computer. You can't do that on Spaces. You can only join. See? How do you want to join? Join as a speaker? Or as a listener? That's what happens when they send you an invite. Ack! I'll join as a speaker. Start listening. Oh, they turn me into a request. Sons of guns. Now they turn it that became a request. Why don't I hear them?
Could he be arrested before November 5th? Or it doesn't matter in that case?
Well, you mean could he be remanded?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I doubt that. I think there was some possibility, but I think once he said what the sentencing will be, and they've said there's no need for bail, etc. I don't think that's what can happen anymore. I also want to say one thing.
Can you guys hear?
I'm sorry, sir, Mr. Price. Look, Judge.
My hand is up.
Is a very respected jurist.
Oh, shut up with your stupid judgment,
No.
Sean.
Did
Just
I
stop
interrupt
it.
you? I'm not aware that I did, sir. Okay, he's respected by both sides. Before this case, he was very well respected. Now, he actually last May, he sent, I think it was May or August, he sent a letter to the ethics panel, basically a New York State advisory ethics panel, saying he had made 2 contributions, very minimal amounts, several years earlier to Biden, I think, or Democrats, and explaining his daughter's activities. The ethics panel said there was no need to recuse himself. So all the
Shut
people
up with
saying,
that. It's so
oh,
stupid.
he's biased and he should have, and he's, his daughter's on the take and all these sort of things.
Yeah,
That's not
he has
what
the first
actually
department. The
ethics
first
panel of
department
New
is going to
York
do
State
that.
has said.
That's
So
the.
you
Of
can
New
sit
York
there.
State? Of New York State? Is that what you're saying?
Who did he
New York
ask?
State Ethics Panel, which is
The
an
New York
advisory
State
committee,
ethics.
which is an advisory committee. That's what you would ask, right?
It's
If you were concerned, you
The
would
same
ask
state
that.
with the same AG that said that her goal was to prosecute.
You know what?
and put this man
You
in
know
jail.
what? Once again, you can rail against everyone. You can say everyone
I'm
in
just
New York
asking.
State is
I'm
it's
biased.
true. We only
clarifying.
noticed it
No,
now
you're not
because it's
actually
Trump, but
clarifying,
we've been
sir.
seeing
What
this for
you're doing
years.
is you're trying to make an insinuation, which is absolutely your right. Okay, but at the end of the day,
Sherry.
he went to the effort of sending a letter explaining what his
That's
daughter
not.
did,
That's
etc.
that's not an effort. That's a cover your ass.
Problem. Now,
That's not an
it seems to have
effort.
gone above and beyond.
That was cover your ass
So
where we
accuse
knew
him
that what they were
without
going to
any
tell him.
facts, because we've had a lot of people.
So
talk-
stupid. So
We
stupid.
have had
That's
a lot of
ridiculous.
people- I am almost
Is-
done.
It's an
Sir.
He
ethical
did that so
problem.
you would be saying this in this
Will you
space.
please
That's
let me
why he
finish?
did it, Tira.
Will you let me
Tira
finish?
tries to be.
Will you
She,
let
she
me finish?
in her defense, she
Will you
tries to be
let me
good faith,
finish?
but she's
Will you
so
let me
out
finish?
there.
She should have gone
No,
out of his
She's a
way
lawyer.
will not.
to
This
be
woman
as
talking.
non-biased as possible.
She's an older
That is
woman.
not what happened throughout the
Excuse
duration of
me.
this case.
First of all, you didn't let me finish, so you kept going, and that's very childish of you to interrupt like that. Number two, what I'm going to say is there is no obligation for him to recuse himself. You might think that he should have, because and all these accusations we have heard against his daughter have literally very little connection with him or merit in terms of when a judge has to recuse himself. Okay, if his daughter works for Democrats, that is not a reason for him to recuse himself. If he is related to a party, if he gets money from a party, or if he's getting
Oh,
money
great. Nick
from her in
Fuentes is
some
in
way that
there.
relates to her work, that would be an actual conflict. The rest of it is just, once again, it's just people making accusations, and I really do resent that. Thank you.
This is a semantics thing, though. I mean, the point is there shouldn't be any appearance of any sort of bias or any sort of issue which would impact the judge's judgment or the court judgment or anything of that nature. You can tell me that a committee in New York told him that he's okay with it.
Of course, that
but
didn't come
in
to
terms
it.
of this case, he could have and should have went above
I don't
and
think it's anything
beyond and
close.
said, my daughter has worked and has coordinated with the Biden campaign in the past, and the daughter also connected to Democrats. So because of this, just to make sure this is a completely fair trial and to have no issue or no appearance of any corruption or anything that would make me biased, I would drop down and give it to somebody else.
Now, you know what? He could have done that, but he did not have to do that. And moreover, if you look at many people in the legal establishment, you will find in every state that many of them are related to other people, that many of them have lawyers in their families who are prosecutors, defense attorneys, etc. That standard is going to be extremely hard to meet. And by the way, if you go that route, then you might have to look at Judge Cannon, because after all, she owes her job to Donald Trump. She was recently appointed.
Oh, stop with your stupid thing.
Well, I'm not
They're
going
so
to
they
go
get.
further because I.
I'm a speaker now.
So one second. Yeah, I am. Yeah. So just as a overview, guys, just to provide you some information, Donald Trump has been found guilty of all 34 charges. Now, I want to go to Nick Fuentes. Nick, I want your overall thoughts.
Let's get the crazy anti-Semites.
In terms of Donald Trump.
If he starts blaming the Jews, I'm telling you he's a Fed plant.
His presidential run, and what kind of foresight does this show us or demonstrate to us in terms of the forthcoming cases that are coming as well?
Hey, thank you, Suleiman. Good to be with you. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So it's sort of interesting. You know, I covered this on my live stream last night, and I know everybody is talking about the details of the case. They're talking about the judge, and they're talking about the jury, and, you know, whether or not he could get a fair trial. And I think really all the details are sort of besides the point when you zoom out and look at the big picture. Because the big picture, when you look at this going back to 2015 and 2016,
the Jews?
This is a picture of a man who has been relentlessly persecuted.
The Jews?
Not just him, but his entire team as well, his campaign managers,
That's
his
true.
staff. We could look at the special counsel with the Russian
25 months,
investigation. We could look
Grimsbar.
at the first impeachment over
Tip
the
my
phone
cap to
call
you.
to Ukraine. The potential, or actually the second impeachment for January 6th, which actually did go through, and the DOJ investigation into all its people. And then, as you indicated, the three other series of charges in Fulton County, and then the two DOJ cases, the January 6th conspiracy fraud case, and the classified documents case. I mean, all of these things are unprecedented. For a president to be impeached twice,
Mr. Frizzy Fo, R.I.P. Justice.
On with the FISA warrant under Obama was unprecedented.
Scary.
For his supporters to be gone after by the DOJ, it was the largest DOJ investigation in history. Now this, first president to be charged, first former president to be charged, convicted of a felony. And I said this on my show last night. It's like, you know, with all this investigation, all this thoroughness in every jurisdiction, his business, his politics, his partners, you'd expect there would be a smoking gun to warrant the significant, sustained, perpetual, broad spectrum investigation. But there's nothing. It's like this hush money payment, which, if we're being honest, all politicians do this. I mean, frankly, everybody in the private sector does this. You can bet every billionaire, every politician is involved in stuff like this. Same thing with the classified documents. They busted Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and then months later they were pulling out all these classified documents from Biden's garage in Delaware. This is just what happens. These are clerical issues. And then in the January 6th case, which, you know, that's kind of beyond the scope of this because that's got its own details and everything. It wasn't even an insurrection charge. It was a fraud charge. It's a conspiracy charge. So I think it's very clear once you paint the broad picture, this is the system defending itself. Hillary Clinton never got held accountable for deleting the emails. Uranium One. Obama doesn't get held accountable. Bush didn't get held accountable. Reagan didn't get held accountable. You know, and I'm not like a Republican shill or a Democrat shill.
No, I'm a Fed
like an independent. I think that this is very clearly the system coming after him because he's an outsider, because he opposes the kind of fundamental tenets of the uni party and government. Not to get too, like, you know, ideological here, but I think that's very clearly what's going on. In terms of the prospects for his election, I think it makes it more likely he's going to win. I think that this is actually saving him.
Yes.
That's the grand irony.
Yeah.
Is that if you look at Trump leaving office in 2020,
I think he's getting 400 electoral votes now.
I think even into the midterms in 22, DeSantis won Florida by 20 points. He won Miami-Dade.
He's getting at least 350 electoral
Look
votes.
at the polling from like December 2022, a month after the midterms, it looked like there was going to be a competitive primary. And so I think Trump leaving office diminished and censored. DeSantis performing well in the midterms. I think Trump really kind of vanishing from the spotlight in that period. It was looking like he might not even win the primary.
Yep.
What saved him.
That's true.
Was the Mar-a-Lago raid in August 2022. And it was these Manhattan charges that were announced last spring, in the spring of 2023.
That's true.
That is when you saw the polling turn around for Trump.
That's true.
And so I think the conviction is going to have the same effect that the initial charges did, which is there's going to be this circling
4 months in
of
the
the wagons, rally around the flag.
I agree, it is a lot.
Anybody that was unsure about supporting Trump before, I think they're sure about it now. I don't think in other words, I don't think anyone's going to look at this and say, oh, Trump got convicted, and now I'm going to vote for Biden. I think if anything, it just made it a lot more clear for undecideds, independents, maybe people that wouldn't have voted otherwise, that this is the guy. He's now become, to his benefit, a martyr. I think that as a person,
I know. They literally have a slush.
Low energy.
It's completely legal. That's the thing.
Than he was 8 years ago. I've been actually a little critical of him in the past couple days, but this is making it. It's turning him into a martyr and a symbol, and I think that's only going to benefit him. As for the other cases, I don't think it impacts the other cases, although I think it does indicate that if he
I'm
got
going to raise
such a
this,
raw
Michelle.
deal, I think
I like
these
this
were
point.
maybe the most trumped up, no pun intended, out of all the serious charges. If he got found guilty in this, I don't think it's going to go too well for him in the others. But of course, you know, that's kind of like the gambler's fallacy. So, that's kind of my big picture take to kind of touch on a few different areas.
Can I correct something that Nick just said there, by the way, about the law? Because this is something we need to keep pounding on and pounding on and pounding on. And that is, there is no crime in hush money payments. In fact, this crime that they're charging here, if in fact this were a crime that they say you have to publicize some sort of payment for your hush money payoffs to people who are making claims against you, in that case, there's a slush fund that Congress has that they actually take care of all these claims for congressional members, which means that every time that slush fund is used for any one of those members of Congress, that should have to be reported on the individual congressperson who got that benefit, the same way Trump reportedly got this benefit from Michael Cohen. So all these different claims that there's a crime that's here and he's being held accountable and no one is above the law. Every person in Congress has that slush fund available to them, and there's literally been used hundreds of times over the past decade. We have no idea how many times these things have been used. This slush fund payments have been used, and if in fact there's a duty to report them because of FICA or any other federal thing that's unlawful to not report it, in that case, every person in Congress who ever benefited from it is equally guilty of this crime. But no one even thinks to charge them. And that's why I think Nick Fuentes, who I think there's probably out of 1,000 things in the universe, there may be 2 I agree with him on. I think the one thing I agree with him on resoundingly is that Americans are waking up to the warts of our judicial system and of our institutions at large. We woke up to the warts of our messaging with respect to mainstream media. We woke up to the warts with respect to our medical community in 2020. We're waking up to all the lies of the media and the ridiculous ways that our justice system is being co-opted by nefarious individuals who don't give the slightest damn about justice, and all they have is an agenda that they want to promote. And we are starting to wake up to this. I think that for Donald Trump's election purposes, as Nick stated, we saw how he started surging when these charges came down. I think we're looking at him getting well over 300 electoral votes as a result of this conviction. I think these convictions are great for him. I don't think that they're going to have the cojones to throw him in prison. I'm not even sure how that would work feasibly with respect to him needing Secret Service, although we can expect that Congress is going to try to strip him of that because of their purely positive agenda for America. So, but I don't think they're going to have the cojones to throw him. They're going to suspend this decision or put him on probation or whatever stupid decision they come is the most likely outcome here, rather than imprisoning him. But I'll tell you this much: he spends 1 day in jail. I think he'll get 400 electoral votes. I think New York's going to fall to Trump. I think we'll start seeing New Jersey start slipping toward Trump. We're going to see this country. We're going to see such a massive red wave resulting because Americans and you know what? Dustin is right also in what he said on the other space. We need to start getting angry. It's not like, oh, this is okay. It's like, no, F you. This is terrible. We need to have rallies. You're basically destroying our country because in your desperate efforts to quote unquote save democracy or whatever other backward phrase that they come up with. So yeah, a lot of people are going to be upset about this. This should make you determined as hell. That there's no way in hell we're going to let them. They're going to continue. Go ahead. I've been talking for a while, so you have a quick.
Good logic. I just have a quick question for you. You think that you don't think he'll actually spend even a moment in jail? Is that correct? You don't believe that at all?
I don't know. I mean, look, they might order some sort of house arrest type of thing. That might happen. Or I don't know, Mar-a-Lago arrest. They might try to order something like that. That I would not rule out.
Towards probation, is that correct? I think most people that I've read in the comments are leaning more towards probation
or supervised release. Yeah, it's like a supervised release type of thing, maybe where he has to notify them where he's going as a way of exerting their control over him. So we might see something like that. So I wouldn't just say I'm saying that's what they're going to give him probation, because Merchan is likely going to say there's 34 convictions here, and that I can't just give you probation for that. So I don't think he's just going to let him walk. I do think that they're going to try and exert some level of control.
But if he's elected president, that would all go out the window, correct? Because the president can't report back to the courts when they are, say, going to the G7. Right?
That's a great question. That's a great question. No, we never had to answer that. Anyone who says they know definitively what would happen is speculating. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm curious if that's going to be the case. If he were convicted,
I can answer that. I can answer that.
Go ahead, Shep. Thank you.
Okay. So let me roll a little grenade into the jet in the next 24 hours to maybe file a motion in D.C. with Judge Chutkan
I don't know when his gag comes off. That's a good question.
For a violation of Trump's terms and conditions of pretrial release, one of which is that he commit no state or federal crime. Now he has a conviction of a state crime that's a violation of his terms of pretrial release. I would not put it past Smith to file a petition and ask Judge Chutkan to put him in custody or to apply more stringent terms of release, such as home detention.
You can try to file for a writ of certiorari. The question is whether the Supreme Court's going to grant it.
Then you have
This guy who's talking is an attorney. He's a famous prosecutor, supposedly.
Cannot incarcerate the
He goes by the name Shipwreck Crew.
of the federal government. That's just the supremacy
This guy with the
clause
Elmer
issue.
Fudd
Whatever
thing.
the state of New York wanted to do would have to wait
Shipwreck Crew.
until he was out of office in 2029. So, but I would not put anything past Jack Smith. So I'm going to be watching. You want to do it in Florida? You want to do it with Judge?
Yeah, because he won't win in Florida. He'll be denied.
But he could do it in D.C.
Look, I'll tell you, my thoughts on that is it's kind of weird to say that the action took place 7 years ago, and now the conviction coming in 2024 would somehow turn that into a violation of his parole that was issued in D.C. In normal circumstances, I would say that's bizarre, makes no sense. However, we just saw Donald Trump get 34 convictions, arguably for paying too much taxes. And illegally, unlawfully, that's what the jury charges say. You can find him guilty of literally paying too much taxes. For all we know, he has 34 convictions right now because he signed off on paying more taxes than he actually was obligated to pay. I mean, think of how bizarre and how desperate they were to try and find any basis to call him a felon. Literally paying too much taxes. That's why he has 34 convictions. How asinine.
Okay, so I want to go to TJ real quick. Because TJ, you are an attorney. You do work in courts pretty frequently, actually, and so we just saw this being set for July 11th.
TJ Roberts.
Sentencing being set for July 11th. When are we going to find out here when President Trump, or whether or not he'll be remanded into custody, or what sort of terms he'll have of his release?
So I haven't read the order.
Can I answer that just really briefly?
Yet?
That's Tira talking. She's the liberal attorney.
Allowed out, no bail. Typically, remand would happen before that decision was made, and if the decision has been made to let him leave with no bail, unless there are changed circumstances, I'm not aware of any, there will be no remand.
Yeah, I think Nick was more talking about whether we would know if President Trump is looking at jail time, is what I think he was asking. And the remand term is a term of art, and what Tira said there is correct. Generally speaking, since they let him out, he's probably not going to have that situation unless he is unless something extreme happens. I would have to see what the order says. I'd have to see how long they want to do the sentencing hearing. Those can go they can be quick. They can go for several days. I mean, especially when you do federal
if he violates parole,
practice,
she could do something.
My law firm does. A whole lot of your job really is just the sentencing issues. We have had sentencing go for as little as 1 day. In past experiences, I've been involved in criminal.
I don't know historically enough about the Spanish Civil War.
Went on for multiple weeks. It does happen. It is a lot to consider. I don't know the process with New York. What I can say in terms of it is, I think that there's practicality concerns as well, where I do think that jailing him is highly unlikely. And the thing is, again, as well,
I don't think they got the balls.
Fact that, let's face it, this entire
they might do house confinement
though. Ploy to try to label President Trump as a felon and
confine him to Mar-a-Lago.
It's backfiring already. But it's so that's the thing. In many ways, there were signals. I forget who it was, but one of President Trump's defense attorneys said that President Trump is facing jail time over this, and Judge Merchan even said that's ridiculous, and I think that shows the politics of it all. It was just to label him as a convicted felon. They've already gotten what they want on it, and I mean, here's the thing: like they're messing around, and it's on us to make sure that they find out in November that we can see through this nonsense. Sure, 12 people in Manhattan couldn't. I think the American people will.
TJ, can I ask you a quick question on that? And then I'll pass it straight to Nick. Of course. You know, you said it's about labeling him as a convicted felon, and therefore it's more political. But wouldn't you say something like this? And I think Nick Fuentes mentioned this earlier as well. Something like this will not only galvanize his support amongst the MAGA, but also amongst the right, thinking that this is a political attack. So if it is about labeling, and labeling means demonizing, means less support, don't you think the opposite will happen?
I mean, I absolutely do. No one's ever accused Joe Biden's regime of being smart. So they make political decisions that are fundamentally stupid. Sure, it makes their base happy, and yeah, you wind up with college kids who are very left wing. Like just clap at it because these guys believe in abolishing jails and prisons until someone's to the right of Elizabeth Warren, and at that point they're all back to borderline Nixon style criminal justice policies.
I don't know who's talking now.
But that's the thing.
It's Nick Fuentes talking, but that's not his voice.
Trust me, I don't think this
Sounds
was
like
a
Scott
great
Presley.
political move on
Maybe it's TJ.
any stretch of the
It's probably TJ
imagination. I
talking.
think that the politics of personal destruction has a very strong inclination to backfire. People tried to use it on me in my run for state representative. It failed then. They tried to use it on President Trump in 2016. It failed then. They've tried to use it on right wingers throughout history. And it is a common tactic, and it
Oh my God, I forgot to post this out that I'm live now
doing it because
on Locals.
sometimes they do it just right in a way that it does work, but it's very rare. And I think this one clearly is going to backfire. I've never seen more angry Americans than I have now. The last time the energy was even close to this was 2016 when Hillary Clinton was the nominee and people came together to put President Trump in the White House. That's the last time I've seen people so furious.
Well, it's much more angry
all
now.
the energy seems to be going in that direction. It's going to be 2016 on steroids in November.
Suleiman, can I just address a little bit about sentencing? Would you mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, as I said before, he is if we just look at him as a convicted criminal at this point, he is a first-time offender. These are non-violent crimes, obviously. And moreover, there is no mandatory minimum on I think they're Class E felonies. So there's no absolute requirement to send him to jail. There will be a prosecutor's recommendation sort of memo that I don't know what they're going to say. They might say no prison time, right? It's entirely possible. But the judge will have a lot of discretion here, complete discretion in many ways. And I think that if you look at the fact, and I know people will disagree on this, but if you look at the fact that Trump did violate his gag order in significant ways and the judge didn't do really much about it, right? I don't think the judge really wants to throw this into a constitutional crisis, because if Trump gets elected and he somehow is in jail, that would be a constitutional issue. Federal supremacy, state criminal law, nothing like this has ever happened before. I'm not sure that Judge Mersham wants to go there. So my thought in this would be that if they're at the sentencing hearing, which I don't think will last days, to be honest, but on July 11th, if it's not put off, that there will be some sort of probation. And then the interesting question will be, what are the rules as to that probation? House arrest, he has to ask the judge for permission to campaign.
That's not probation if it's house arrest.
Significantly, but I'm not sure how he could. I'm not sure under what circumstances he could appeal those sorts of things. Thanks.
Tira, can I ask you a question? If this whole thing was just about sentencing him to probation, is that not an admission? Which I agree with you. I don't think for a second. I don't think they have the cojones to throw him in prison. But if that's all what it's about, and that's what you think that this is ultimately going, and that's where Judge Mersham was going, then where's this whole thing that the basis of this was about holding him accountable? And that's why to show that no man is above the law, if you're simply just going to give him literally no punishment at all, and rather than this blatantly being that they're just desperate to try and attach the label felon to Donald Trump.
I guess I view it the other way. I view it as the fact that he's running for president and might well win puts him in a sort of separate category. I think if he weren't running for president, there might be some sort of significant restrictions, even 6 months in jail, stuff like that. But the problem becomes, because he is running for president, he will be given special consideration because of the ramifications, right? So I sort of look at it the other way. You want to hold him guilty, but you recognize that practically speaking, if you were to do anything like putting him in jail, that that would be hugely consequential for the election and for the for the country, and you don't really want to do that. Does that make sense?
Not really. I mean, I understand what you're trying to say. The reason that doesn't, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I disagree with you logically, and if you want, you can have a response. He had carte blanche on when to schedule this trial. If the whole point was to actually have him held accountable, Judge Merchan could have said, and Trump happily would have gone along with pushing this trial back till after the election, and then if he wouldn't win, in that case, you can actually impose a sentence that would genuinely hold him accountable. Why hold the trial now? Why have it right now unless the objective is we'll get a conviction, label him a felon, and then give him absolutely no punishment?
Because we know that if Trump wins, justice would be potentially delayed 4 years, because he could not be tried, at least I don't know that this has specifically been decided, but the Office of Legal Counsel and all sorts of precedents would say that he could not be tried even on state criminal charges while he is president. So what would happen then is, in essence, the judge would be saying, okay, if he wins, he gets away, he doesn't get his trial. And I think if I'm a judge, that is not going to be an appealing prospect either if you weigh the equities on both sides.
Well, when you talk about weighing the equities on both sides, you mentioned earlier that the reason that we should trust that Merchan here was really working above board is because he sent a letter to the ethics board questioning whether or not this was okay for him to not recuse himself, despite the fact that it's pretty clear that there's at the very least to 100 million Americans the appearance of impropriety based on the relationship of his daughter and her relationship to the DNC. And you're saying he sent that letter, so that shows how he's trying to be above board. I'll tell you right now, to those millions of Americans, that was a CYA letter. He's covering his ass and basically saying, oh, look, I spoke to the board. I think the very reason he sent that letter was that you, Tira, you would come into this space today and say he sent a letter and got approval from the ethics committee. But he sent that letter after talking to them and knowing that they're all on the same page, that they're gonna give him that coverage for his ass. So that's what I think is why he sent that letter. That's what I think was happening here, specifically for you, Tira, so that you would say this here. And I don't mean that they've had your name in mind, but that you and other attorneys on the left would be able to say, no, this is completely kosher. Everything's here totally fine. Oh, this is completely legit, and there's nothing wrong with the ethics here because he went and asked that question and they gave their blessing. I don't think it's a revelation that this is. I don't think this is a revelation that this was actually proper. I think it's a revelation as to how deep the rot is.
Well, since, as you pointed out, he does not know me, I do not know him, I think it highly unlikely he was thinking of me when he sent the letter, or even anyone like me when he sent the letter. I also think that a lot of the accusations about Lauren Merchant's work lack real specificity about what she does and how she makes money. I mean, for example, we heard for months, and this is coming from Trump and from so-called independent citizen journalists, not talking about Nick, basically we've heard that, she works for, Kamala Harris, she works for Joe Biden. Well, she did work for the campaign in 2020. She doesn't currently, as far as I'm aware, work for the campaign. I also don't think she actually has the authentic company that she works for. I think it's called Authentic Campaigns or something like that. I don't think they have a contract with the DNC. So I think, people have smeared her in a strange way, saying, well, because she works for them, he is inevitably biased. I don't think that's true. I don't think we know anything about the details of what she's doing, how she gets paid, whether she gets more money somehow. I don't think so. If Donald Trump is found guilty as opposed to innocent, obviously, if you are a company that worked for a successful presidential campaign in 2020,
you are allowed
that wasn't clear that it would be successful, you are going to be sought after in the things that you do in 2024. That is obvious. So to me, I think there's an awful lot of stuff about her that is unverified, that has been just spewed out over the internet, and quite frankly, is probably some of it's somewhat defamatory if I had to guess, but I'm not going to go there. Can I say one thing to Nick Fuentes before? Nick, you seem to indicate before that all these cases lack merit, blah, blah.
They do.
I really point you to the documents case in Florida, because there, let's assume the allegations are correct. We're going to assume it, okay? If correct, what Donald Trump, he was sent a lawful subpoena. Now, when you get a lawful subpoena, you're supposed to respond to it,
Let's not talk about the stupid Florida case now.
You can make filings, say we don't think so, blah, 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 but you're supposed to respond to it properly. What the indictment says is that he got Walt Natta. There were 60 boxes of documents. He had his people move all 60 into another area. He then had them bring back 30, and it was only those 30 boxes that were searched and sent back as responsive to the subpoena. Now, in any court I know, with any lawyer I know, quite frankly, if you took away Donald Trump's name and you said those are correct, they would say, wow, that's obstruction. You cannot do that. So you said those were bogus. I have to tell you that I think that particular charge is sort of like a slam dunk, assuming the allegations are correct. Thanks.
So Tira, can I
respond?
I'm just gonna give it to Nick to respond, and then after that, we're just gonna play something from former President Trump. So go ahead, Nick, respond to that, and then we'll go and play the clip.
Yeah, so, I mean, what I said about all these charges is you have to look at it at the big picture and paint in broad strokes. And I think that if you get into the fine details of it, I think you're probably right. I think that, and I've said this before on my show, I think in the classified documents case in particular, I think there probably was impropriety. But let's think about the unprecedented.
I agree. People tend to revert what's
this is a former
natural
who's
and
been
you're used to.
twice, spied on through the FISA courts, censored on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. I mean, he's really been run through the ringer here. They really did the whole gauntlet of legal, private sector. I mean, everything they could do to this guy. And then the DOJ case they bring is a clerical issue. Oh, you had classified document. I mean, listen to what you're saying. This is a case against a former president who also happens to be a major party nominee for president in the forthcoming election. The case the DOJ brings is a clerical case. You had some papers in a box. It's also especially rich after what had been going on with Hillary Clinton with her private email server when she was Secretary of State, which, by the way, that never saw the light of day. There were no charges over that. I think that Trump made a big mistake not going after her. I think there's a lesson in that.
Scott
Trump
Adams
got
sent
elected,
people here?
and despite saying that he would appoint a special prosecutor and she'd be in jail,
Scott Adams sent people
totally
to me?
declined out of what? Magnanimity, incompetence, who knows? I think it was a mistake. Biden gets in. They hire 1,000 FBI agents, 1,000 judges. They go after 1,600 people who they charge in connection with January 6th. And I think you know as well as I do, this is lawfare, plain and simple. They have an agenda, and it's not about they're looking for wrongdoing. It's not like they happened upon this. They're looking to create prosecutions because they're after this guy. So that's why they're looking. True. What can we do with the phone call in Fulton County? What can we do with the business filings in New York City? What can we do with January 6th? What can we do with this? The point is the cart is being put before the horse. They want to take this guy down. They find something. And that is, to me, that's the mismatch. This is unprecedented. It's globally historically significant, and it's over classified documents. I mean, I think that if you went and found any former president, because it involves a lot of paperwork, and especially somebody like Trump, who's extremely disorganized and is facing numerous lawsuits, he was facing all this stuff with the DOJ already and had been charged in Manhattan prior to the raid at Mar-a-Lago.
I'm going to come after that.
I
I'm
don't
gagging
think
him.
it's totally out of bounds that you have a clerical error, which is really what it amounts to. And I think the frustration that the other gentleman is that good logic was referring to is that, you see all these other politicians, there seems to be no accountability about actual
great. I'm on Nick Fuente's radar now.
That happened. WMDs in Iraq, gain-of-function research, the mRNA vaccine injuries, the media cover-up. I mean, what did they say? It was like 25 intelligence officials signed on a letter and said the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian propaganda. I mean, you could go after one example after another. Real scandals, like real actual consequences for the country. Doesn't seem to be any problems for anybody else. But this guy, like I said, when you look at the big picture, the shoe doesn't fit. They've gone through everything, and what they come up with is phone call, so-called conspiracy, an extremely broad statute, as you know. And I know this because I talked to my lawyers about it over January 6th. It's a prosecutor's gift. It's conspiracy. It's classified documents. It's bullshit. And so, we could get into the granular, and to close, I mean, I'm just going to say, we could get into the granular fine things, and I actually probably would agree with you. But I think it's just context denial to say that this is a legitimate prosecution, that they're looking for wrongdoing rather than they're trying to hang this guy and they're looking for any way to
Show me
do
the
it.
man,
I think
I'll show
that's
you
just
the
how they
crime.
operate. And the lawfare, it's just
Show
as
me the
much
man,
about
I'll show
getting
you
the
the crime.
conviction as it is about the process. This stuff is costly, it's distracting, it's time consuming. He's
Yep.
an old man, he's running an election. Running a campaign.
Yeah, seriously, wait till he finds out I'm
Whether
Jewish.
it's the civil suits or the criminal suits,
Joe, conspiracy theory here. They sent the sheriffs after the Pope to distract multitude from the Trump trial.
it's just going to slow
I
him
don't think
down,
so.
distract him, drain him,
I don't think that's right.
and bring him down. And
Trump's
that's
campaign
the
donation
intention. I
crashed
think
because it was
everybody
overwhelmed
knows
with
that when you look at
donations.
the big picture.
Oh, really?
So
That's
my
hilarious.
rebuttal to that.
Appreciate that, Nick. Now I'm going to go to Khaleesi because she's going to just play a clip from former President Trump. Go ahead, Khaleesi.
Oh, he didn't send. Okay.
Thanks, Suleiman. So we played it earlier at the top of the space, but these are the few words that President Trump said right outside the courtroom after the verdict.
God.
1 second.
It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. It would give us a venue change. We were
This allows a recording.
6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial.
This sounds like it was recorded in 1922.
November 5th by the people, and they know what happened here. Everybody knows what happened here. You have a STARS back, EA, and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end and we'll win.
17,000 people in this space.
We don't have the same country
That's cool.
anymore. We have a divided and mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now.
Thank you, Mary.
Mental institutions,
I'm sure they'll have it.
and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one.
It was.
With a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case.
Yep.
And we will fight for our Constitution. This
Probably,
is
Jeremy.
Thank you very much.
That's it, and I didn't take any questions. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate that. And yeah, that there is a clip of that in the net if you want to check that out, because it was echoing a little bit, unless it was just for me. Let me go to straight back to Nick. Nick, one of the questions I asked, and I don't know if you answered it previously, is that this case, when we spoke about it, and Tira, the same question is going to come to you actually. When we spoke to you, when me and Tira and many others, both from the right, both from the left, spoke, many disagreed about the strength of the claims, all four cases. But what generally everyone agreed, with slight variations, was this was basically the more weaker case out of the rest. If President Trump has been convicted for the more weaker case, what does that show us about what's going to happen for the remaining three cases?
Well, yeah, it's like I said, and I don't want to monopolize the whole time. So
Why
I'm
would
gonna
you
keep it
ask him
brief,
that
but,
question when he's not a lawyer?
But it's exactly like you say.
So
I
dumb.
think this was the weaker case, and it's like Logic said. I mean, he said that I said that it's illegal to do hush money. I didn't say that. I agree with you. I think that the whole so-called hush money thing, I don't even see the crime there. I certainly don't see the secondary crime. It makes it a felony, because there was this phantom secondary crime that elevated it from a misdemeanor to a felony. I don't see the misdemeanor or the felony. And so I think this was probably the weakest one out of the four. And as Tira said, I think the strongest one is the classified documents. I mean, I recall there was that leaked recording that came out, which was, I think, really inconvenient for Trump. This was last year. I think he basically admitted to it. He's in Mar-a-Lago saying, "Oh, come look at these documents. They're classified." It sounded like it was almost like too good to be true for a prosecutor. So, of course, I don't think one has necessarily anything to do with the other. I don't think the outcome of this one affects the outcome of the others. But, certainly this was a weaker case. He was found guilty.
That's not what he said.
To the extent that
That's not what he
reflects
said.
sentiment, or maybe the political will to prosecute, for jurors or whoever to bring down the hammer on this guy, then I think they're definitely going to get him in the documents case. But I don't know the timeline of when
It's all about the jury.
Trials are set for.
It's all
like I said, I'm not really into the
forward.
details, but clearly this was the weaker one. He got found guilty. I think there's going to be more guilty verdicts coming up.
Washington,
but this is why I think Trump supporters. I mean, this is me to the right. I mean, not so much to the left. I think this is why I don't want to say it's a waste of time, but I think it's making the lawfare work if you give it too much attention, because that's the whole point, is to suck all the air out of the room.
No.
And we're talking about Fannie Willis and Alvin Bragg. I know that's what this space is about.
No.
But I think that's the purpose of the lawfare, is to derail the entire operation.
No.
So all the time is spent getting into the weeds on minutia and tedium about these various cases.
That's true.
In reality, if we zoom out, it's like, what's the big deal?
Zoom out.
Boxes, phone calls. This stuff is nothing. So that, my mind's just really not into a lot of this stuff. I think the big picture is this is part of a 10-year lawfare campaign, and that's how I think Trump supporters have to approach this. I think that's how Trump should approach it, and that's the way he's going to win the election.
Let me same question to you, and I can just add an extra detail, and then I was same question to you, because I was actually going to come to you about the same question. Same question to you, and if you can answer that question, because we don't know what the charges are going to be for this. Many people in the panel think that it possibly won't be a prison sentence, but
not charges,
if this
sentencing.
has been found guilty, then the other ones can lead to significant jail sentences. So if you can add that aspect to it as well, and then please do answer the same question.
All right. As a practical matter, none of these other cases will be heard before the election.
Yep.
Judge Chutkan's case, the DC election interference case, has been put off the calendar, waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on Trump's presidential immunity charge, right? Presidential immunity claim.
When do we finally?
Can I? Nick, let me just go, okay? Because I think I will answer that. We don't know when the Supreme Court will rule on that. I'm thinking within the month, but nobody knows. Nobody can answer that.
It will be within the month.
So that case is on hold. The documents case, which is in Florida, is also off the docket because Judge Cannon has said that there are too many complicated issues. Both of those are federal cases, and quite frankly, if Donald Trump is reelected president in the fall, he will dismiss those cases, I believe, or his Justice Department will dismiss those cases, which they can do. So those cases I don't think will ever be heard. The only other case that could be heard is the Georgia case. Now, here's what has happened with that. As you know,
Fannie Willis is up in smoke.
Basically, the judge in Georgia ruled that she can continue on the case, but that is being appealed. So right now we have no date for that. And in fact, it's possible she'll be removed from the case. It's also possible that the Georgia State Assembly will say we're doing something, this case shouldn't go forward. There are lots of possibilities there, but in any event, that will not be heard before the election either. And while he's president, it cannot be heard. So I think as a practical matter, all the rest of these cases are toast until the election, right? And depending on the results of the election, they might never be heard.
Can I supplement that? Can I supplement what you just said?
Yeah, so Suleiman, I think your extra point, though, is, does it matter? And my answer is probably not, because I don't think any of these cases are going to go to trial.
And I agree with you, Tira. He is going to win the election, which is why they won't go to trial. They're not going to come before the election. I agree with you that, and your implicit admission there that he's going to win the election now. I appreciate that. I'll tell you that I agree with everything Tira just said. It was a spot on breakdown with respect to answer what Suleiman's question was as far as the chances of his success. Let's imagine that Tira is wrong and somehow Trump loses, and you're concerned about what potential penalties or sentencings or likelihood of an acquittal in these other cases are. So there are questions whether the Georgia case is ever going to make it anywhere, because Fannie does look like she's going to struggle to stay in this case. And if she gets removed, you would need to have another prosecutor who's interested in bringing forward. And it's not clear they'll have an easy time doing that. The Washington case really depends on the Supreme Court decision. They usually issue they drop a ton of decisions in June, and they save the spiciest ones for the end of June, which is like, for example, the Dobbs decision, I think, came down on like June 24th, or 25th. So we should expect that this will come within the next month, this decision as to whether or not President has immunity for anything that he's done within the ambit of his presidency. I think we should foresee, given how the oral argument went, there's a very likely chance that a majority of the justices are going to come down and say that he cannot be held liable for anything he did in the ambit of fulfilling his duties of presidency. And here are the delineations as to how those duties are labeled and how they should be judged as to because not everything he does is considered a presidential function. When he gave a speech at the Ellipse, that's probably not a presidential function, whereas his conversation with Raffensperger investigating into elections, that likely is within that ambit. So what the court is likely to do with that Washington case is to tell Judge Chutkan that she has responsibility to carve out from the indictment charges any activities which fall in with this ambit that will be defined in that Supreme Court decision that we're expecting next month. Take those out and then see what charges, if any, remain. And if there are sufficient allegations to support those charges, go forward with it. With respect to his chances of success in overcoming these cases, ultimately, it's not as much about how good or bad the case is, but more often than not, unfortunately, it's the jury pool that you're dealing with. When you're talking about Washington, D.C., it's a much worse jury pool for Donald Trump than New York. Much worse. That everyone, I've gone to jury pool of voir dires there. Everyone there works for Congress or for ABC News or NSB or MSNBC. Everyone there has a relative who's closely associated with it. It is so incestuous there. And that's why he'll never find a pool there which would ever find him not guilty. I can't imagine that he'll withstand that. In stark contrast, the case where he has the strongest allegations against him are in Florida. My personal opinion of Florida is that right now it's arguably the reddest state in the country, and I think that Jack Smith is going to struggle to find 12 people, even in Miami, who would be willing to convict Donald Trump. And even though those charges are arguably on a granular level, technically violation, I think that because of the jury pool there, that's probably where he would most likely have his greatest success. I don't think that Georgia case, that's if he loses the election and those two federal cases go forward. And the Georgia case is more of a crapshoot between those two, but I think that one's the least likely one to actually make it all the way to trial.
I hate to jump in here like this.
One second. I'm going to straight to you, Lisa. I'm just going to read this statement by Biden and Trump's campaign. And they've said, just to give everyone an update on what they are saying. So they've said, quote, "In New York today, we saw that no one is above the law. Donald Trump has always mistakenly believed he would never face
There's a good chance of a successful appeal. They don't care about that. There are a million reasons for a successful appeal.
Does not change the fact that the American people face a simple reality. There is still only one way to keep Donald Trump out of the Oval Office, at the ballot box. Convicted felon or not, Trump will be the Republican nominee for president. The threat Trump poses to our democracy has never been greater. He is running an increasingly unhinged campaign of revenge and retribution, pledging to be a dictator on day one, and calling for our Constitution to be terminated so he can regain and keep power. A second Trump term means chaos. Stripping away Americans' freedoms and fomenting political violence. And the American people will reject it this November. Lisa, do jump in with what you want to say. I really want to hear your rebuttal and comments as well.
It actually has to do with exactly what that statement says and how they're framing it. Like these other cases and all, they're meaningless at this point, right? This one is a state case. Even if he wins, they can't be pardoned. They are clearly, look at how they're framing him. They're clearly playing to win here. Like, this is what Republicans don't do. They're pulling out all the stops, and him going to prison for this on 34 felony counts is not out of the realm of possibilities. They put him in prison because of all the reasons that you listed there, because they see him as such a threat. He can't even pardon himself to get out. I don't care about the other cases. I care about this one because he was found guilty, and now they're saying that they're going to sentence him right before the convention. Right? I have no doubt in my mind that they will at least put him in prison for a certain period of time. Like, this judge hates him. sentencing.
I
People
hope so.
are saying like, oh, well, he's like the first time offender and whatever. No, these people hate him. They think that he's a threat to everything. And I definitely see him going to jail. And I don't know why anybody's not talking about that. That's more horrifying to me than the stupid verdict about paper.
Well, Lisa, one other question to you. I'm not sure if you can answer this, but if not, is who's going to decide his sentencing? Is it going to be the judge or is it going to be the jury?
Well, no. How it works is a
This is why you don't have an Englishman
investigator,
hosting.
my uncle used to be one, will go and look at his criminal history or whatever, and they give a recommendation to the judge, but it is up to the discretion of the judge to pass down sentencing. So technically right now, he's not even a convicted felon yet. It will depend on how the judge rules on that.
Right, so the judge is going to decide, the judge that he has an issue with, the judge, everyone is going to decide the specific sentences. What's the maximum and minimum sentence that he could get?
I think it's 4 years. It may be 4 years per count, but it's definitely 4
It is per
years
piece.
that I was seeing.
Right.
I don't know if it's per count. Prodigal would know better because he's an actual lawyer, but I think it's at least 4 years. Yeah.
Let me go straight to Prodigal. I really want to hear from him. I know he's going to be.
I defer to good logic. I don't do criminal law, but.
No, but that question, and then I know you got a lot to contribute as well.
I don't do criminal law either.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this is very transparent. I mean, there is no justice. This was a witch hunt that existed, that's continued.
I like Prodigal.
To hear people talking about other cases, the classified documents case, I mean, literally, Hillary Clinton was a former lawyer and a career politician, right? Well, what has been her repercussions, right? She paid an $8,000 fine, right, for hatching the Russiagate hoax. Slap on the wrist, divided the country that we're still dealing with today over lies from a British spy. What about her private server and her staff taking hammers to their Blackberries? I mean, to hear people talk as if this has been neutral and objective and nonpartisan is a complete lie. I mean, the judge's daughter, it came out recently based on records, close to $10 million in the 2020 Biden campaign. Like this is stuff that you only see in Banana Republic, but it makes sense. You import 11, 12 million illegals, and this is what you get, right? This is something that it's a travesty. Michael Cohen is a convicted perjurer. The only reason he pled out and went after Trump is because he committed major tax fraud with the taxi medallion business, right? This is something that is unprecedented. And I don't think that they're going to get the desired result that they want come the election. I think that this is, my understanding is that, he will be free pending appeals. So this is something that's not going to be resolved before the 2020 election. And this is something
24.
where, you look at the focus, you see the left cheering this, but literally Biden gave Ukraine the green light to strike inside the interior of Russia today.
Prodigal, real quick. Each sentence carries. Each sentence is 4 years. So
No.
4 years for each times 34. That's what we're at right now.
It's-
So,
I don't
That's-
think they would do. It wouldn't be consecutively. It would be concurrently. I don't think.
Right.
I don't think we have.
But that's what it inevitably is, and he can do whatever he wants that year. So.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt that they're going that far. That's I don't doubt that they are crazy enough that they hate him enough to, but I doubt that they would, just because at that point you're just painting him as more of a sympathetic figure. Now, I can't speak to, the legality of how this is going to necessarily affect the other ongoing cases, but one thing that I can say is that this is a strategic play, if nothing else, because sentencing can be as light as house arrest. You do something like that, take them off the campaign trail. Now you've given, your incumbent, and I'm talking about from the DNC perspective, enough ability to run a lackluster campaign and actually.
But I think he has a lot of great bases for appeal. But they don't care about that. They just care about labeling him a felon going into the election.
To say, okay, guys, y'all go campaign and do outreach because we're taking your main player off of the board. That's the practicality of this. All the rest of the cases, I mean, they're throwaways at this point. You're not going to necessarily do anything with them because you're
No one
just
knows.
gauging the
That's what I was saying.
reaction to
That's
this,
why
and
they
the
have to put him
reaction is
Mar-a-Lago.
going to be so vitriolic and such a snap.
But Congress is trying to move to have
that I highly doubt
him
that
lose
they're
his
doing
Secret
anything that they
Service.
see that this makes him stronger. It's A/B test.
If they can get that through the House,
So realistically,
shame on the House.
this is essentially this is what they wanted. This is all they needed, at least to give them the most advantage. Now, whether they do a swap out, with their, I guess, with the preferred candidate, I don't know. But now that you've got, basically your biggest opponent sidelined, presumptively pending appeal.
I think this would be sorted before before he's sworn in.
Let anything else go forward,
This would all be sworn in. This would be resolved by the court
classified documents. I really
to remedy that
just
problem.
think that this is, this is basically the big play to level the playing field because deeply unpopular candidate currently, he's losing a lot of support. I'm talking about Biden when I say that. Run on merit. So now all they can do is just cripple their opponent.
So, Suleiman, to answer your question, while technically, whoever, Lisa was correct, it's 4 years for each count, 34 counts, do the math. There is, I believe, a cap on this is a Class C felony, and the cap for a total sentence for a Class C felony would be 20 years.
So wait a sec, he could get 20 years in total.
That would be the maximum I believe he could get, regardless of how many counts of this he was found guilty of. But I don't think anybody.
There's no basis to remove him.
Be shocked if anything like that.
I'm going to turn this down for a second. There's no basis to remove him from a ballot. The whole basis was under the 14th Amendment. A felon's allowed to run for president, but you can't remove him from the ballot simply because he gets a felony. It's only if it's for something related to the insurrection charges.
Anybody who thinks that this was actually a priority or something that reflects justice
Good question.
in the United States, judicial system, it's a joke. It's clear that, give me the man and I'll name the crime. That's what this has been since the day he ran, since they launched that Russiagate hoax investigation that nobody has paid a price for. Just like Fauci now is embroiled in a major conspiracy that is cover up in regards to, dismissing the gain of function leak has been there. You want actual justice. People want accountability for our endless wars. They want accountability for the illegal COVID lockdowns. This does nothing to improve Americans' lives. This just divides the country further. And now you get to see the real face of the Democratic Party and the neocons who might be celebrating this. This is what it is. It's mask off, people. Now you see what we've known for a long time.
Well, Prodigal, that's par for the course. Remember, on the epitaph of all Republicans is imagine if it were the other side. Like, we've been screaming this for years. It's never going to happen.
Malcolm
you know what
Flex.
Kind of game that you're going to have to play, so you play it accordingly. Playing that game accordingly does not mean, getting outraged and indignant that everything is unfair. It's understanding, utilizing tactical empathy. Think about what the neocons killed. When they slandered Justin Raimondo and all those other figures of the early actual conservative movement by saying, oh, you're just unpatriotic conservatives because you're trying to understand what's going on. No, you need that. You need tactical empathy. And you need to understand that right now, they've got you in a corner. So you need to play the game smart. And by playing the game smart, it's going to be waging a substantial ground campaign.
Oh, thank you, Denise.
And sticking to messaging. Don't get too distracted right now because all of this is noise.
Yeah, I'm not distracted. I'm giving examples of the double standard of the U.S. judicial system and what's occurred. I think you overestimate the ability of the average American to digest news and remember things in the past. I'm just
not you directly. Not you directly. I'm just saying to the base because we definitely understand a lot of what led up to this. We understood this from the day that you had the David Wormsers and the Paul Wolfowitzes influencing policy, basically being the fifth column in the United States, and then destabilizing that region.
Listen, they crossed the Rubicon. If he wins the election, it's open game now. That's why they're scared. They're scared he's going to do what they did, except here they committed real crimes.
Why don't our governors do? Why don't our Republican governors start doing what they did? Like the
Republican DAs.
Get up and fight and don't fight fair. Like they don't fight fair. Why aren't we finding crimes? Why aren't we taking
prosecute the sacred cow, Obama?
Prosecuting these people.
Well, maybe there's a brave soul in Arkansas.
It's
there's a brave soul in Arkansas that can deal with the Bidens.
The greatest play, look, guys, the greatest play you can ever do is the hedge. And right now, I don't know if you know this, but most of our governors and politicians are cowards. They hedge their bets. So right now, again, assuming that this whole populist machine that has been being built collapses in on itself, which there is still a probability, especially when you have the feds working at it, governors have to basically be there to be the adults in the room, the moderates, and
I'll be right
it's
back.
like the
I'm
older
gonna leave
Dodge.
this on for you guys.
They got to get a wake up.
Well, it's like the older Dodge. If Tom catches
When I come back, I'll talk to you about how this impacts, if at all, my application to ungag Trump. Now that the conviction has come in, how's this how's it affected? So I'll address that when I come back. I just got to grab some food real quick.
Going back to you in terms of just from the legal aspect, and of course we'll debate whether this was a targeted political attack. Tira, I think you mentioned that it's possibly up to 20 years. That's the maximum. If you believe it's highly unlikely, the minimum you mentioned a lot earlier could be something as seamless as a fine. Based on what we're seeing, I think Lisa makes a very credible argument that she would not be surprised, and I actually think her argument has a lot of merit based on what we see now. That I don't agree with TJ that it's just going to be a label. I think there has to be something more to it. Label actually benefits Trump. You're seeing the galvanization of the support even more so from the right if that happens. So, I mean, if there is a prison sentence, based on your experience in New York, I mean, what kind of sentence would we be looking at?
The logistics of a prison sentence would be incredibly difficult, as we all know. Would Trump be placed in a cell with Secret Service people? Would they set up a separate part of the prison for him, etc.? This is sort of a mess, right? I'm not sure any judge wants to go into it. Moreover, were he in prison, he could not campaign except from prison, and there are limits in terms of prison on what the sort of phone calls, electronics, and things like that. So I don't think, the reason I think this is unlikely to happen is because it raises all sorts of other issues which will be immediately appealed, etc. Right? In other words, let's say he sentences him to 6 months in prison. And by the way, if he was sentenced to anything in prison, it would be something, I think, on the very low end. First-time offender, non-violent crime. There are practical reasons why you would really not want to do this anyway. Be something like 6 months, and then Donald Trump would probably appeal that, and he would be once again allowed to continue without bail, which is what's happened now. He wasn't remanded to prison. He just left, right? Be allowed to continue to campaign while he was appealing that, right? Because I don't think anybody, I mean, obviously anything is possible, but I think the practical logistical ramifications here are so vast that I'm not sure anybody wants to get into that. If
Could you imagine based on Brad's past history, if he was a violent felon or a shoplifter, he would have never been charged and released. So I mean, everything here goes against the standard that Bragg has pursued. So it'll be interesting to see what they pursue in sentencing and what they do. But don't forget that this is a Soros-funded DA, funded by his daughter-in-law, that has literally let criminals roam free in New York. And even if he does get a short sentence, even if he gets a short sentence, and God forbid gets put there, all the criminals they release, as when they commit more violent felonies, just run ads. Run ads that this is what the left does, right? Just run ads, because that's what's happening.
Can I just ask a quick question? You said funded by Alvin Bragg is funded by Lauren Merchant. Is that your new claim?
No, that's not what I said.
You
He's
said
funded by Soros' daughter-in-law. That's Alvin Bragg. Letitia James, who ran on it, she was funded directly by, Alvin Bragg was funded by Soros. Letitia James was funded by Soros' daughter-in-law. Sorry, I'll correct.
Okay, sorry. I said daughter. I sort of assumed something else.
No.
Could you imagine them though? Prodigal. Could you imagine them with Rikers Island being the way it is, filled to the max anyway? They would have to let people out to give him enough room to have him and his Secret Service in there. So they're going to let real criminals out.
Can you guys hear it when it's down?
I mean, the optics of that would be terrible. But like I said, you can't put anything past these people because they're letting violent criminals go. I mean, they let those kids that butchered a body up, they let them off the hook free without bail. But they're prosecuting him to the max. I mean, I don't put anything past these people, even if it's a 30-day prison sentence just to say they did it. And then a couple days time served or whatever. I honestly think that it's not out of the realm of possibilities, and I guarantee you, with the way this judge hates him so much, that he's definitely considering it.
See, his problem is that he wasn't an Epstein and Maxwell client. Then we would have never known his name. He would have never been pursued.
That's them. That's their audio.
I think you're breaking up for a second.
Yeah, Soleimani.
I can't hear you, Suleiman.
I would say he would not be able to go out. What's your thoughts?
I didn't hear the whole thing.
We just heard. What's your thoughts?
Tyr made the argument that one of the reasons why this won't happen is that it will impact his campaign. But wouldn't that be the very reason you would put him in prison? Because it will impact his campaign. It will allow him to campaign both publicly and also when he's in a jail cell, he won't be able to even talk to his campaign team.
I mean, this is uncharted territory. Nobody thought that they would push the nation to the brink of a constitutional crisis, which is what we're in now, people. You might not want to admit it, but literally the Republic and the Constitution is at play here. So nothing's off the table. I've been clear for years. The reason why a lot of people are going to these lengths is because they're treasonous, corrupt criminals who, if accountability does occur, they will face repercussions, loss of prestige, loss of money, loss of wealth, maybe loss of freedom, and maybe even further if their treasonous acts are revealed. So, listen, what would you do to protect your family, your wealth, and everything else from the crimes you've committed? I don't know. That's been my read since day one, and I'm sticking to it.
I would say, no, because what's the station?
Yes, no, I would say, so I saw mentioned before about Republicans. I think it was you, Lisa, talking about that. They've been asleep at the wheel for a very long time, unfortunately, and this is a consequence of that. And I'd also say in terms of, what's
They also don't care about Trump. Republican Party doesn't care about Trump.
I never thought Trump would be in a situation where in a trial, which should have been not guilty in my opinion, he was ruled to be guilty on all counts, and now he's facing jail time if it goes to that. It's very plausible, and I'm sure that's the end goal, to put him in jail. I know if Nick thought that Trump would be ending up in jail on this trial specifically, or maybe even the future trials.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they'll put him in jail. I think, as Tira said earlier, I think she made a good point that it would set up a genuine constitutional crisis. It'd be a constitutional issue if he wins the election and he's in jail. But we've really been in a constitutional crisis, and not rhetoric. That is precisely what we're in. I mean, specifically since the election in 2020. The election of 2020 revealed how vague and ambiguous the Constitution is about the transfer of power from one president to the next. The actual procedure, the actual process, there's no specificity. And actually, the ambiguity...
They might throw him in prison for 2 months just to hold him there. No, 3 months just to hold him there.
Because there was this
through the election
theory, which, admittedly, I think is dubious, that if Mike Pence didn't read the votes from particular states, technically, Biden could not clinch the majority of the votes, and then it would go to Congress. I mean, that was the John Eastman strategy, or the legal theory behind the January 6th crisis. So, I mean, we've really been in this for a long time. And I agree. I think it's driving the nation to the brink. And the big question is, what happens on what happens on November 6th, 2024? Or, well, I should say, it's not like it used to be. What happens whenever they finish counting the votes? I'm insinuating what happens when we know who the victor is after the election. It could take weeks before they count the votes. But what happens when there's a decision made, whether it's Biden or Trump? I think there is a genuine concern about civil disorder. If it's going to be Trump, you know that Antifa will be out there in full force in exponentially greater intensity than they did in 2016, because there was an admittedly small Antifa force, I think, right after the election during the inauguration, nothing really to speak of. And then, of course, in 2020, you had Stop the Steal and January 6th. So there's really this unstoppable force, immovable object, Trump being the unstoppable force, deep state being the immovable object. What happens the day or the week? What happens after this collision? Because I don't think either side is going to accept defeat. What is, I think, a little bit, what is telling is that I think that if anybody were to make a guess as to which side would capitulate, it would be the Republicans. Like, if we're really being honest with ourselves, let's say there's a scenario where Trump wins. you know the Democrats will rage. You know the left, you know the deep state.
Well, Podesta war game, Nick, right? Didn't Podesta, this was war game by the Biden campaign via Podesta, where they said they wouldn't accept it and they expected California and other states to basically, push the issue. So,
except liberals did accept it in 2016 and Republicans had an insurrection. So I don't even know what you're talking about.
Listen,
that voice is crazy. That voice of the enemy is crazy. Let me just finish my point. Because I'm actually making a point. I'm saying that I think that the right, what's really sad about the right is I think that they are just going to take this. I mean, like, perfect example today, they deliver this verdict in this case. It's a total sham trial. And you have all these Republicans going out, just like they did when he got charged last year, and they're saying, war. It's war. I remember last year when Trump got charged, or maybe it was after Mar-a-Lago in 23, or 22 rather. I remember Steve Crowder started selling a t-shirt that said war, and he went on Twitter and said war, and you know what he did the next day? Nothing. He did his show again, and it's like nothing happened for the whole interceding year between then and now. And just like then, today,
they stormed the Capitol, bro. They stormed the Capitol. People died.
I was there.
Dear God, I hate this guy. Okay.
No, wait. I want to. Well, let me just. I'll finish very quickly, and then I want to hear Brian. It's actually good to have a back and forth, better than like a circle jerk. Perfect foil too, based on the voice. I know this is going to be good content, but no, the Republicans never do anything. They make the same mistakes. They lay down, and this is the last thing I'll say. The perfect example is Trump got in, and despite saying he would arrest Hillary Clinton, he didn't. It was inexplicable. He got in, he talked all that, he talked a big game, we're going to throw you in jail, I'm going to appoint a special prosecutor. He got in, he didn't. Biden got in, arrested everybody, they went after Trump, they banned him from social media. I mean, the vaccine mandate, they went all in. The lesson is Republicans got to stop getting pushed around. It's like, at the end of the day, it's a question of will. But that's the last thing I'll say. I don't control space, but I want to hear from Brian. I want to hear a back and forth.
Since 1797, we've had peaceful transfers of power between parties since 1801 until Trump. The idea that the Republicans are going to be the meek and mild and just this is we haven't had. You have to go back to Reconstruction when the Democrats were the violent insurrectionists. That was in the 1860s when they were the white supremacists. Now it's switched. All right. Wait a minute. That didn't matter.
Never switched. We never switched.
I'm going to be very quick. The simple fact of the matter is this is not a sham trial. It's a very basic thing.
Yes, I'm 11 years old.
No serious human being believes Donald Trump only a few weeks before the election paid off a porn star he had an affair with just before an election that was when the affair was 10 years ago. Right after
this loon.
So it's obviously the political element to it.
This guy's crazy.
The jurors of because if there's a political element, then it's a felony, and it's 34 counts of misrepresenting what should have been declared as a political expense. That's the simple truth. He broke the law. He paid the price. Justice has been served. I land my plane.
So you want Clinton in jail because all they paid was an $8,000 fine. This peaceful transfer of power, ignoring parties, which even the right betrayed them. Well, not the right, the neocons and the GOP mainstream. Like, what are you talking about peaceful transfer of power? You literally had the alphabet boys concoct a fake Russiagate hoax that was that was not revealed in the IG Harvard report.
Yes.
Very quick. That was not revealed in the Mueller report. That was only revealed later.
Yep.
John Brennan had a handwritten note saying that he had seen Hillary Clinton concocted the whole thing.
Yep.
So don't come up here and act holier than thou. You're full of shit.
Yes.
Let me say, Brad Stevens stormed the Capitol and I met Mike Fanone. I met Harry John. I met Aquilino Gonell. I met
they're traitors.
Those four guys put their lives on the line to protect democracy.
4 traitors.
You met the Hobbs twins? Republicans did.
Brian, I was at the inauguration. I don't know how many people here were, okay? Peaceful transfer of power. They had to lock down the whole city, okay? I couldn't with my mother. Wait, I'm not done. I couldn't with my mother.
No, she's talking 2017, jackass.
Get into the thing because we couldn't get into where we had to go sit at our seats to see him get sworn in. Trump, this is in 2016, 17, right? I absolutely couldn't get in there because we had riot police blocking it. We had protesters throwing all kinds of grenades and like
smoke bombs and shit. Don't sit there and act like there was a peaceful transfer of power when they were lighting demos on fire.
There wasn't.
No.
The insurrection. There was no.
We're talking 2016, genius. 2016, genius.
Man, we're talking about 2016. Let
me jump in here. Let me jump in here. Hey, very important point. What about BLM? What about when you and the boys were burning down Minneapolis?
That was in the summer of 2020, and it wasn't about the election. It wasn't about
burning down.
Who cares? Who cares?
Why?
Why?
False equivalence.
Why? Why is it a false equivalence?
You guys were the election.
They were arrested. They were
raping everybody.
Okay, guys.
Just chaos. It's chaos now.
Why is it not muted? Listen, 1 second, Brian. Brian, I want to hear what you got to say. I think everyone does. Just let everyone know scream. There's two people screaming at the same time. Let Nick finish his point, and then I'll go to you, Brian. Nick, go ahead, and then I'll go to Brian.
I did not bring it up to
Yeah, well, just to wrap up my point, I mean, the subject is about the political violence, and I think it's very clear the left, for better or for worse, they are better at the organizing, whether it's, and it goes both ways. I mean, there's peaceful, but there's also violent. You got the Women's March, but you also have Antifa and BLM. And I think it's no question as to who is mobilized and who is out there.
Who's more exposed, though?
It's the left. I mean, and the right, I think, was an exception. And to your point, actually, on January 6th, and I can speak to this because I was there and I was at Stop the Steal, the entire Stop the Steal campaign was totally disorganized. The Trump lawyers basically gave up on his election challenge the night that Biden became the victor, or whenever they certified the last election.
They
results.
circled the wagons and circled dirt each other.
Inside the White House that were even working on this. It was guys like Garrett Ziegler working under the trade office with Peter Navarro that was doing this stuff. Well, and point being, well, whatever. But point being is it was totally disorganized. It was totally like ad hoc, ramshackle stuff, and it was basically like an utter failure. I mean, across the board, Turning Point wasn't out there. GOP wasn't out there. Trump campaign was barely out there. And at the end of the day, at January 6th, I mean, one, that whole thing was the exception to the rule. Besides that, January 6th was mostly peaceful. I mean, that's the grand irony. They talk about mostly peaceful protesters. There were like a handful of people that engaged in violence. The vast majority of people, there were 500,000.
Yeah, I was there. It was a handful of people. It was like 50 that did any physical damage.
People went inside the Capitol. Only 50 people entered the Capitol.
No, I'm not talking about entering. I'm talking about doing physical damage, number one. And number two is the reason why Republicans
weren't allowed to enter. That the entering was itself an act of violence. That was not something.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Okay, so you tell me. So I was a Hill staffer for however many years.
Oh my God.
So you say that all
oh my God. Too many yelling. Too many yelling. Too many yelling. Loud noises. Loud noises. Oh my God. Lisa, this is craziness.
They weren't arrested. They weren't anything.
Lisa.
I'll wrap up my point, but basically,
there
were 500,000 people there on January 6th out of the 1,600 that were charged. All right, can I finish? I mean, this is like
Brian, you have to let him finish, and then you get the point. This is what I want to keep in this list, but it becomes really hard.
You gotta put the
can't.
soy down. You're getting too hopped up on fucking Soylent meal drinks. But look, I mean, there were 5.
Okay. I think we're done with that. I'll tell you right now. I told you I was going to let you know where I'm at with the whole ungag Trump thing. Technically, the gag is still in effect. It's still in effect. Nothing changed with respect to the gag. Gag doesn't have an automatic drop deadline. A lot of us thought that it would end for the witnesses after they testified. Nope, we're still in effect. It's technically still in effect now. As of this point in time, and perhaps for the foreseeable future into July, he's still gagged. Oh my God. They're so loud. So, yeah. So I'm still marching forward. And I plan on following up with them tomorrow to find out whether I got a decision, because I don't know how I'm even going to learn a decision, because no stupid NICEF number that was ever attached to it. but technically it's still in effect, which means that it's not moot. The concern a lot of people have is that my application would be rejected on the basis of mootness. If it ends, it's technically still in effect. There's an argument to be made back that it's capable of repetition and evading review. There's a phrase, capable of repetition and evading review, meaning if he gets booked again, he's going to be gagged again. So that's why I need to have a termination on it. But that means it's another argument I have to win in order to just even be heard. So that's not something I really want to do. So that's not something I really want to do. So, but like I said, at the end of the day, this is about the DC Circuit case anyway, and I'm planning on moving forward directly there as well. Just joined. Why is it that people have to talk over each other? P.S. Haircut looking good. I can see that beard arguing in front of the Supremes. It is good, right? That's solid. I think it's solid. Pretty solid. I like it thicker. I used to have I always had like a much thinner thing. I think leaving it wider is. I think thicker is better. I think it is. Thank you. So. Yeah. But as far as sorry. As far as anything else with respect to Trump, if you join late, he was convicted of 34 charges. Sentencing is supposed to come on July 11th. He's not been remanded into custody. He was released and due back on July 11th for them to issue sentencing. All sorts of questions as to the nature of sentencing. If you're wondering what he could be sentenced, it's 34 counts of a Class E felony. I'm going to put this phone down here. I'm not leaving there because I sort of want to stay on the panel there. But so it's 34 counts of a Class E felony. Class E felony can be either probation or 1 to 4 years per felony, which means he's looking at a maximum of 20 years for these quote-unquote 34 felonies, if that's where the judge wants to go. I don't think they're going to give him any jail time. I do think they're going to have very highly supervised release, so that's where they can exert their control over him without having to deal with the whole Secret Service issue. Because what do you do with his Secret Service? You can't just leave him. You can't supersede that. He's entitled on the federal law as Secret Service. You can't access spaces on XY computers meant to prevent the streaming of spaces on other platforms. Maybe. I hadn't thought of that. It's possible. I can still hear her trying to talk over the world. They're all. Sometimes it just gets out of control. There's a couple of people there who are not conducive to healthy spaces. One of the things that's a struggle with spaces, you're trying to find competing voices from other sides. One of the things I like about Tira is that she's going to be presenting an attorney's understanding of the law from the left, and that she can engage in conversation or dialogue without screaming like a lunatic, and she will actually respond and sometimes adjust her position based on what you say. You can have a dialogue there, as opposed to the craziness that this devolved into at this point, which this is craziness. This is not a good space anymore. It started as a good space. It's not really very good anymore. So, but anyway, I don't foresee that he's going to go to jail. If he does go to jail, I'll tell you this much, I wouldn't be shocked. I haven't said this on there yet. Perhaps if they do sentence him, can you see Judge Merchan sentence him to like 3 months? This way you put him in there from July, August, September. No one can complain that he's not out there that he can't, you can campaign in November. Give him 4 months and keep him off the campaign trail for 4 months. I'll tell you right now. I think he's gonna get 350 electoral votes. I think that this turned the election into a slam dunk. I think this is a great day if you're hoping for a Trump for Trump 2024. I think this is a great day for you. I really do. I think that this is I think New York's going to fall. I think I think New Jersey is in the offing. I think that this is going to blow up in their faces in ways they haven't even imagined. But who knows? Who knows? That's just what I think. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Now, this is embarrassing. He was convicted here and arguably convicted for overpaying on his taxes. It's just asinine. It's just asinine. Anyhow, so those are my thoughts on that. I'm going to see if that space is any better now. I'm still in there on the panel. I think I'm still on the panel. I am on the panel.
If you stuck around while they were storming the Capitol,
Oh my
you were
God.
supporting the insurrection. If you went inside the Capitol, you're guilty of multiple crimes.
This is such an
What about if
idiot.
the police opened the door for you and gave you an escort, like we saw in several of the videos released? Is that a crime?
Under
Does that
duress,
count as entrapment?
Hamas hostages saying, "Oh,
Does that
Hamas
count as
is
entrapment?
That's under duress. There was a mob threatening them outside. And those officers
What about if the police
sounds
point
like
you
a
out to where to
lunatic.
go, they hold the door open for you, and they let you take pictures at the podium?
As I just said, that's them failing in their duties. Not all
God
of them.
bless
Like,
those
not
officers
all
for
of them
staying
were
so
Harry Jones.
composed and
Not
looking
all of
so
them were Oscar
accommodating.
Mazzella or Hodges. Okay, those four guys did their job.
Can't listen to
So
this
they
guy.
were
He's
injured
so this guy
severely.
is like the stark opposite of Tiro. Anyway, I think I'm gonna leave this. I think I'm gonna leave this space and oh my God, this is craziness. I don't really see what I have here.
Oh yeah, the Democrats are really pushing for his alternate while the rest of the country's going to hell.
You know, I actually had a lengthy talk with Rackets today. I actually had a lengthy talk with him today. After I made an appearance on Chrissy Mayer, and he was texting me while I was on there. I didn't realize it until afterwards. He was texting me while I was on there, and I ended up calling him afterwards. I heard that he cannot pardon state charges. Back.
Contribution. It was not. That's a violation of FEC.
Oh my God.
Didn't prosecute him. No violation. Guilty. 34 counts. He's a fucking felon, and he deserves it.
You're so unhinged.
Not a felon yet.
You're so unhinged. Hold on.
He's been convicted. He is a felon. He's convicted.
No, actually, you're wrong. That shows how dumb you are. He's not
Hasn't been
technically a
sentenced, but
felon.
he's been convicted.
No,
He's now a felon.
he's not. Nope, not true. Go read any legal argument. He's not a convicted felon until the judge passes the sentence. I'll send you the whole
All right. Hey, all right, this guy's a maniac. Can we get Brian to calm down? It's totally out of control.
Maniac for
Guy's a
claiming
lunatic.
being found guilty on 34 felony
No,
counts
because
makes you a felon.
you're interrupting
Certifiable.
everybody. Because you're interrupting everybody. You're annoying. Your voice is annoying. Let's just calm down. We could have a civil conversation. Now,
When
with
Nick
regard
Fuentes
to-
says your voice is annoying, you need to take that very seriously. Okay, bro?
Okay, that's just I didn't say that about your Jewish accent.
Have this racist right wing.
Oh no, the conversation was going pretty well when Nick was.
Guys, calm down, please.
That was
Let me
tough
go to
love.
Lucky.
It was tough love.
Stop interrupting, please. Lucky, go ahead. Go and give a response to. Hi, Lucky. Nice to have you. Go and respond to Brian, please.
Yeah, I mean, this guy Brian Freidenberg comes out and he's just.
He didn't know who I was at the start of this conversation. All of a sudden, he figured out he's Jewish. He's Jewish.
The space is about Donald Trump. It comes from an FEC violation, which is normally a slap on the wrist. Obama got hit with a $300,000 fine in 2008 from an FEC violation. So they created this new legal theory where they're like, oh, well, we can do it.
Since this, does Trump stay gagged? Yes, he does stay gagged until it's overturned. Yes, I'm not shocked at all. I'm not shocked at all. You have to be really vested to stand up to the elite liberals. Since this trial has established jurisdiction has no meaning, Ken Paxton should file criminal charges against Merchan, Bragg, James, and the jurors. I don't know that you can say that.
From being on the jury, they're able to kind of control the room. They're able to kind of bend the jury to their will. It's well known that that's why lawyers are typically Trump.
Blues and Crips Trump, guarantee it.
Jurors, laymen are going to rely on the experts, right? So it would be like,
Tag me on X.
130 pages of charges. They're going to go to these lawyers. And be like, hey, so what about this? What about this? It's in Manhattan, right? These are very liberal attorneys.
Oh, that's true, but the elections are not for another couple of years.
Right? We know what it is. They wanted to get the salacious testimony from Stormy Daniels on there. Talk about the bogus.
No picks.
No picks. What does that have to do with anything? The point of the matter is,
Oof.
Democrats recognize that
Testified as well. She was one of the witnesses.
Brian, someone else is talking. Brian, can I just finish? So the reality is, right? Democrats know Trump's base. It's evangelicals, it's white Catholics, it's people who attend church. It's a very conservative, religious, voting group. Black. Every election shows this, right? They want to get up there. They want a porn star giving salacious testimony, even though she signed an affidavit saying that they never had any sex, but now she's giving testimony in front of a New York trial. They did the same thing with E. Jean Carroll. Like, E. Jean Carroll was a nut job. They let her testify against Trump. They brought all these different women to testify against Trump.
Oh, this is lucky.
None of these women had any case against Trump, but this other civil trial, same thing, because they want to paint Trump as this like sexual deviant and hopefully lose enough percentage of this religious vote that they're hurting him. And that's what it's all about. He's not going to jail. This is going to get overturned because the judge didn't even allow the FEC expert to testify.
He's wrong about that.
No good explanation.
He's wrong about the FEC expert element. The FEC expert is not really relevant.
So, Brian, why wasn't the FEC expert allowed to testify at a trial that's based on an FEC violation?
Lucky, just before you ask Brian that question and he answers it, and I am going to go to Brian to answer it. Lucky, good question. Many people on the panel have explained what they believe may happen, what may be the charges, and so on and so forth. Let's say hypothetically speaking, President Trump was given, let's say, 6 months jail sentence. If they were to appeal in the United States, how does it work? Does his then jail sentence be put on hold until after the appeal, or does it be that while he's in prison, there's an appeal?
Can I answer that? Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Jamal.
So yes, that's how it goes. So essentially, what will happen is if there is some sort of a sentence, he would be moving forth an appeal and look to stay the sentence, which essentially will happen. Donald Trump will not be going to jail, especially this year. So we gotta make this clear. Now, a lot of folks are saying all different things, but what will happen is even if there was a sentence, it'll stay past the presidential election in November. So the reality that we have here,
why do you say that?
Is that, we got an election coming up in November. So how does this really affect the election? What will happen if Trump wins, right? What will happen if Trump does not win? These are the questions that we got to answer. Trump isn't going to jail. We can throw that out the window. What type of effect does this have on the election is the only question that we should be answering at this time. And in my view, I believe that this catapults Trump into the White House, really pushing folks who didn't even like Trump before to see what this case has done to Trump and even look to vote for him now. So I think this backfires for the Democrats and my view. I think that what you will see is, more folks that will lean towards Trump, especially while Joe Biden is having massive problems, right? Look at what's happening, in Ukraine and Russia and Palestine and Israel. The loss of voters just came out, 32% and the loss of young voters. There's a big percentage of black voters that he's lost.
Falsifying business records is a misdemeanor. If the purpose of falsifying is to help conceal or commit a crime, then it becomes a felony. It raises up to a felony. So they say the crime is that he broke New York election law, meaning that he tried to basically win an election by engaging in unlawful conduct. So that means the second crime that they had to find him guilty of is he broke New York election law. Well, how do you do that? You engage in unlawful conduct. Well, that means you go into a third crime. What's the third crime? Well, the judge gave 3 different theories. One of them was if they paid too much in taxes, because he didn't have to pay taxes on the money he gave Cohen, but he helped Cohen pay too much in taxes by reporting it as salary. rather than as repayment of a loan, that is unlawful, because it's unlawful to overpay taxes. So he now essentially has 34 convictions for overpaying taxes.
Saying we had over 3,000, that's 9/11 level casualties a day coming from COVID when Trump left office per day. That's what I'm saying. It's not that 9/11 happened under
I can't
Trump.
handle.
Worse, far worse, far more people died from
Yeah. Also, Trump allowed the states to mandate.
Once the vaccines got rolled out by Biden, wasn't holding them back. Jared
He's
Kushner,
not entertaining. He's just noise. I can't.
Let alone the Middle East peace process. Look how great that went. The point I'm making is that things were not better when Trump left office.
Well, Judge Merchan disagreed with you. He said that overpaying taxes is a crime in his jury charges.
They'll be a convicted felon. So I want to hear.
Brian, can you answer the
34 felonies is going to help Trump and hurt Biden. Trump is a convicted felon. Trump's a convicted felon, not Joe Biden.
Okay. Listen, Brian.
He's insane. He's insane.
Just answer Lucky's question, because I think it's actually a very good question. Specifically why, and I am actually into that question. I'm going to ask the same question to Good Logic. I'm sure he'll have a good expansive reason for it as well.
Look at that.
What's the reason why he wasn't allowed to testify?
I'm not sure how the process worked, because the defense could have called him as a witness. I think if they wanted to, they did not. I don't know
yes,
why
they did. He wasn't allowed to testify.
I'm not sure how this worked. All I'm going to say is that I think for political sensitivities, the FEC and the Justice Department under Biden and under Trump didn't want to pursue this at the time. They should have. Just because they chose not to
blocked it, though,
doesn't mean it's not a legitimate violation of the law, and it clearly was. And we have a jury of 12 people who found that it was a violation of the FEC.
Oh my God! Stop with this stupid.
Convenience that wasn't pursued before. But I don't know deep down why that was made. You'll have to ask the people involved, and I'm not one of them.
Okay,
So, Good Logic, can I ask you the same question? What's your thoughts behind it? Actually, give me both sides. Give me the side from why it would be in the Democrats' interest, and then also maybe from an impartial perspective, what would have been the thought process if it wasn't biased?
The thought process on you're asking about precluding the expert testimony?
Yeah, of the FCC.
Okay, so I'll tell you that. I'll tell you this. I struggle when listening to Brian. I get like shivers down my spine, because I feel like I'm in a campaign war. It's like it's not dialogue. It's not what Spaces is for. I love engaging T-Row from the other side, but with Brian, I feel like there's no conversation. It's frustrating as hell, because I wish he could engage in conversation. But I'll answer your question as follows. Of all the terrible decisions and questionable issues with the way Merchan ran this trial, the one area which he seems to have the most shelter under law, as far as decision he made against Trump, was with respect to the expert testimony. Experts are, that's just, if you recognize this as a litigator, that you cannot get a litigator, you cannot have an expert come in and testify about what the law is. That's not what you ever, Prodigal, you're laughing. I'm asking you, you think that if you disagree with me, I'd be happy to hear your perspective on this.
I don't even think I pressed anything. That might be delayed.
Oh, okay, no.
That was reset.
No, so what I'm saying is
Prodigal's getting a bit old. Good Logic, don't hit on him.
Even an expert, you don't have an expert witness telling you what the law is. If anything, he could come in there and testify about situations which historically the law is prosecuted, or it's or how it's treated, arguably. But explaining what the law is considered the exclusive domain of the judge. So of all the decisions he made, that one is the one I have the least problems with. There are others which create serious questions about appealable error, not simply about the fact that he just stayed on this case, but continually allowing the prosecutor to object in openings, in closings, in which witnesses he did not allow, who were like fact witnesses, in the way he controlled how much Costello could testify, in the way and what areas he could testify about, in allowing Stormy Daniels to get up there and basically start describing a sex scene which has nothing to do with whether or not he paid her. And he, under the auspices of this, is to establish her credibility. And to the testimony from this thing should have been a directed verdict against conviction. This should have been a directed verdict from acquittal before Trump defense got up there. And the reason is because they never established the primary elements, the essential elements, the prima facie elements of the crimes that he was charged with. This you enter a directed verdict saying no reasonable jury could come to a conclusion that he's guilty, and accordingly, I'm directing the verdict. What are you confused about? What are you
over 30,000 too? That was fun.
50,000. Really.
What was that? I didn't hear Malcolm.
How did they get 34 felony conviction counts then just now?
Oh, it's very simple. It's very simple. The same way you're screaming like a lunatic that he's guilty, because you don't have to listen to the facts in order to come to the conclusion. Why would you ever have a directed verdict by that logic, Brian? Brian, think to yourself. Why should you ever have a directed verdict? The reason you have a directed verdict, the reason there's an option. Forget about this case. In any case ever in history, why should you ever have a directed verdict? Just leave it to the jury. It's because sometimes, in the eyes of the law, there's not enough here. It's just not legally a crime. But there's a very grave concern, especially when you have a polarizing political figure, that even though the guy's not really guilty, that the jury just doesn't like him.
What's he not guilty of? He obviously paid off a porn star before an election.
They don't even necessarily know what the felony was.
No. Oh my God.
Expense, and then he wouldn't be charged.
I'll tell you what, Brian, if you want to have that conversation, and you can have it with me calmly, I'll try to engage you in a dialogue. Okay, I'll try. Okay, fine.
He doesn't wait 10 years after the affair to pay off the porn star after Access Hollywood tape drops just before the election. If it's not also about the election, and because it's also about the election, then that is why he had to declare
the guy
as part of the campaign, and he didn't.
Why did they wait?
That's it.
Brian, what are you talking? You're talking about delays?
Brian.
They delayed this so it was in the midst of a campaign season when nobody would touch it.
Correct.
Like, stop. Just stop.
So let's ask.
I can answer your question.
He snuffed it out, and it was a campaign expense, and he violated the law.
Sorry, Brian, that was a delayed one. Let me go to Jamal. Go ahead, Jamal.
We're about to have dialogue.
So the question that we really need to ask Brian, okay? Because I want to answer a couple of your questions. One, let's answer this question. If this was not Donald J. Trump,
no stupid direction.
Would this case have been tried?
That's not the way you address this question.
Anybody can agree.
Oh my gosh.
This case would not have been tried if it was.
I get so aggravated.
We can understand that
this is so
had,
stupid.
So stupid. This was about politics here, right? And they wanted to move forward this case at a time it was most volatile to try to, sway an election. We all know this.
Not an answer. It's not an answer. Right? It's true. The other question, just not related to what he's talking about.
You asked, as you said, well, why would people elect someone who's now a felon or whatever the case, you said? Here's the reason. Number one is because the majority of American people don't believe in these systems that are going after Trump, right? They don't believe that these systems are fair and just. They have had their own interactions with these systems where they didn't believe that they were fair. So the whole notion that the Democrats thought, all right, if we make them a felon or if we indict them everywhere, then maybe people, would stop liking them. That's going to backfire. Okay, all that has done is energize.
I did not know this.
The base, made people who didn't like them. And you have to also understand that you have an unpopular president. Now, maybe this could have been different if we had a popular president. We'd have a vastly unpopular president in every demographic and group of people in America. So you have Joe Biden, who's unpopular.
Howard Trump's approval when he left. Howard Trump's approval when he left.
Let's look at the poll numbers now. Let's look at the numbers today. Let's be serious. If this was going to work, Trump would not be excelling in a lot of polls around the country. So we got to understand.
He has a narrow lead in some polls. That's it.
Okay.
Period.
A person who is under multiple
He's not
indictments shouldn't
answering.
be in a narrow lead against the president of the United States. It
Well,
was
now
not
they've been
happening other
convicted. Look
times.
for that to change.
So it's not going to change because they also polled to say the majority of people who support Trump or don't give a damn about it.
Yeah, but
So
they polled
let's be
independents
serious.
and other Republicans who said they would change their mind if he was
He's
found
out of
guilty.
Listen,
I
let's be
can't.
serious.
I can't. We're so close to having an actual conversation, and then this guy sidelined it with this other stupidity. I can't.
Trump.
I can't. This is so
I would like to
stupid.
hear that actually. Justin, they're arguing about people who are not MAGA, who are Republicans, who disagree with Trump on some issues. I mean, I know yours one was COVID. How do you see this? Is this going to impact your vote? Is it going to impact your decision, or is this some? I know you expected this as well. So, like, what kind of impact does this have, and where are you now with Trump?
Thanks, Sully. Yeah, look, I committed to vote for Trump begrudgingly, and I wasn't going to pull a lot of water for him. But now, the Democrats keep forcing my hand. I'm almost ready to put a yard sign out in my yard on this whole thing, as I think someone else alluded to on here. I think when people look at the specifics of the case, you realize very quickly that there's only one reason why this was brought, and that's because his last name was Trump. And no one's ever been sort of brought to this, and I've been in political veins now for almost 25 years. I've seen a lot of FEC violations, a lot of things that have come through other clients and people that I've known who have been caught by the FEC, and even in federal court. I had a good friend who was sentenced here in San Diego, and they didn't go to jail, and it was very rare for them to be brought, and usually it's just a slap on the hand, and usually these things are just dismissed. So this was obviously very politically motivated.
Can I ask if they falsified business records? The friends that you're talking about, did they do that, and did they pay off a porn star?
Well, absolutely. That's been my biggest gripe. The whole thing is that look, at the end, this was because Trump doesn't have scruples and mores, and we have to each make our own decision on these things. But in the end, I'm like, look, it's hard for me to stomach exactly what transpired up there. I don't deny. In fact, I've been taking him to task on, look, none of this would happen. Donald Trump has a part of blame in this whole thing. Okay, absolutely, you cannot deny that. But in the end, this was vastly politically motivated. Almost all sides agree to that, and the outcome is embarrassing. And I think it's just a debacle. I'm just embarrassed by this entire situation on both sides.
So just 1 second, Brian.
Wouldn't they have gone after Clinton if Clinton had paid a porn star? And
Let's talk about the porn that Bill Clinton.
Brian, why you sound so scared?
Are you bringing up really Bill Clinton, who's actually paid off plenty of women?
No, I'm saying if Bill Clinton had done this, he would have been
prosecuted. He has done this.
He never violated any falsified records for campaign.
What about the sock drawer?
Let's be serious.
Okay, Brian. The next time you're in trouble, I'm just gonna drop you. Like, I'm trying my best to keep it up because just to provide some other perspective. We've got other people.
I'm trying to find this thing
so
here.
you need to just calm yourself down. I'm asking him questions and you're just interrupting rudely. Like, I don't know if you've not learned manners before, but no one was debating you. I mean,
to be fair, monkeypox is breaking out against them. I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, bro, if it's possible. Like, listen, I'll take your word for it. Prodigals normally on it. Right, Justin, let's go back to. I was asking you a question, so I'm actually interested because you're not like part of the MAGA base. I know at one point you didn't want to vote Trump. So, are you going to be voting Trump now, or what's your
Yeah, I mean, in the end, I'm a dutiful Republican soldier. I'm even raising money for Trump. In fact, I can tell you just within the last hour, hundreds of thousands of dollars has been pouring in. The donation page is broke, and people just have a general sense as to what's fair and what's unfair. Look, I'm not a fan of the guy, but in the end, when I compare him to Joe Biden and what's happening in the country, it's difficult for me to do that. Now, again, the difference is I was going to vote for Trump. I've committed to that for since the primaries because I'm a dutiful Republican soldier in this thing. But I wasn't going to bend over backwards to help him in any specific way, and I was still going to hold his feet to the fire, all things COVID, and I still will. But this makes me want to get out and do more. I'll just say that.
So this has made you move more towards Trump. That's interesting because this was the question really, because I remember when DeSantis was basically with the Trump, and when he was basically going against Trump in the primary, your position then was like, even if DeSantis wasn't going to win, you weren't going to vote Trump. So after that, you were going to vote Trump, and now you're saying actually with this conviction, with this almost conviction, I mean it's not happened yet, but
I'm trying to figure out whether
now
this
you're
thing.
actually thinking, you know what, the justice system is against Trump, and now I'm going to actually campaign for him as well.
Yeah, just to be clear, I don't think I ever said I would never vote for Trump, but I was
Yeah, I see
definitely
it
a
here.
DeSantis fan and wanted to see someone in there. Donald Trump has admitted he's the father of the vaccine, and he has yet to apologize for a single thing that he did during COVID. And so that's been my bailiwick now for the last 4 years. I will still harp for him on it, as well as anyone else. Dr. Fauci is coming to Capitol Hill next week. That should be fun. But at the same time, I'm like, look, in the end, we don't have perfect choices. And you have to decide what you want to do. So I've committed, and I had committed to vote for whoever the Republican nominee was. But I'll tell you, the difficult thing is, I don't know that the Republican Party is really game planned as to how you really deal with with an issue where you have a convicted felon and you have to now put them on the ballot and figure out how to deal with that. And you can put it as a sort of merit badge or a badge of honor on this thing, but there are a good number of independent voters who are not totally in the in the veins of following politics on a day-to-day basis, and this is going to impact them. So it makes me think, okay, we're going to have to work a little harder because this is just deeply unfair.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna 1 second. No, bro, 1 second.
Can I ask just in one question?
No, you can't. 1 second. Right, so 1 second. I'm going now a couple of statements, and then I'm gonna go to Brian Christensen because I know he'll have a different perspective, and we've got a few other people coming up as well.
So Brian's someone else I can argue with.
And read this. The first thing was a statement by Donald Trump Jr., and he said, "Guilty on all accounts, the Democrats have succeeded in their years-long attempt to turn America into a third world shithole. November the 5th is our last chance to save it." That was a statement by Donald Trump Jr., and then we also had Tucker Carlson, the one and only, who said, "Import the third world, become the third world." That's what we just saw. This won't stop Trump. He'll win the election if he's not killed first, but it does not mark the end of the fairest justice system in the world. Anyone who defends this verdict is a danger to you and your family. That was a statement by Tucker Carlson.
I like it.
I believe there's other statements coming out. I'll read them in a few seconds. Let me go straight to Brian. Brian, Donald Trump has been found guilty on 34 accounts.
I love that because basically they should be deemed a threat to our society. Anyone who defends this decision is a threat to our society. They need to be otherized. It's time for us to start otherizing the other side. They need to be otherized. They are in the minority. They belong in the minority. They should be called out for being in the minority. If your political opinion is that these decisions are justifiable, you are a danger to America. You're a danger to the Republic. That's what you are. You're a danger to the Republic, and they need to be called out.
The parody anyway, so, you know what I mean?
I love that framing. That's the right framing.
Jokes. My mother's probably going to cry.
Well, I mean, to be fair, though, that's the best arguments Brian's made in years. So,
I agree. It was like there was consistency. There was like even the elocution was brilliant. So I completely agree with you, Prodigal.
That's not even relevant. I mean, whether he had sex with her or not is really almost not even relevant. I don't even care. Who the hell cares?
For a significant period of time, you've got people. Anyway, I won't go to the privates. But go ahead, Joe. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, look, I understand.
He's a lefty, this guy.
Some of the things that Jamal said are true, and some of them I completely disagree. So I do think this helps him. I think his base. There was a no-win situation for the Dems with this case. If he would have won, look, Trump was right all along. If he were to lose, look, the Dems are after us, and they're weaponizing the legal system to come after and win the election. So there was no winning this case either way for the Democrats. Like either way, he was going to lose. Either way, he was going to raise money. His popularity is growing, and that's what happens, right?
They're like the mean girls,
I've
talking crap on some of these nutters. Yep.
Biden should be in jail because the laptop. He hid the laptop from coming on the news, and he manipulated election results because people didn't know about the laptop because they sequestered it. Trump did the same thing with this case with the porn star. And all of a sudden, this shouldn't be a problem, but the laptop is.
What?
It doesn't make sense to me. It's like you're showing your tribalism by defending it for one way, but not the other.
Can you explain that? I don't understand that analogy, Joe. I'd like to have the discussion with you about that. Can you explain what your analogy is between criminal conviction of I'm not even sure what. No one's really sure what over here in Trump and the Biden laptop.
Yeah, look. The thing is, I believe this was the weakest of the 4 cases. I really do. I didn't think they were going to get a conviction here, to be honest. But I've also heard many of you say that Biden hid the laptop from coming out, and that's how he won the election.
Well, the FBI did.
He should be
2019.
He should be
they had it
charged
during the Trump-Ukraine impeachment, Joe. You know this. It's been.
But you guys were saying he should be charged for it, right? He should be charged for hiding that information.
We're pointing out selective prosecution and the weaponization of the U.S. judicial system. We're pointing out that 51
this investigation started before he announced the re-election.
When it was verified.
This investigation started before he announced the re-election. Right? It started before that. It didn't come after. It didn't come because he said he was going to run. It was out before that. Right? And you guys want them to prosecute for the laptop. We'll see where that goes.
The difference here is that the
you don't get to selectively say
the Hunter
one guy
Biden
hides
laptop.
information, it's okay. The other guy hides information, it's
That's
not.
the difference. The Fed had it in 2019, and they let Trump be impeached for asking here, instead of relying on the advice of counsel, whatever occurred here you had the FBI literally do a catch and kill.
Sorry, I forgot I was here.
That wasn't why he wasn't impeached simply for asking. Come on.
That was basically why you trust Vindman. Have you seen what was going on in the Ukraine?
We're talking about the impeachment now. Come on.
This is a guy that's been. Look, I think Biden's absolute shit. I really do, and it's horrible. This is our 2 selections. But look, this guy was impeached twice. He has 4 criminal.
A lot of people like you. Supposedly, he's getting fat right now on cash
this
donations.
Is not a good person. You guys put him up like he walks on water, and it's absolutely insane.
That's actually, you see, Joa.
He did something that was wrong.
Joa.
Period.
Joa. Listen, we've engaged in healthy dialogue back and forth before. I don't think your analogy is reasonable. Primarily because I don't hear anyone saying that Biden should be thrown in jail for hiding the laptop. It's not the hiding of the laptop that people are calling for him to be thrown in jail. It's for the contents of that laptop. That's what it is. I don't care about the fact that they suppressed it. I think there was lacking in integrity or ethics in the fact that you had 51 former FBI or CIA or intelligence agents come out there and lie to the American people. That shows us how corrupt this system is. I didn't say that Biden himself should be prosecuted for that, nor would I know what charges they would bring. What charges are you going to bring? I don't even know what charges you would bring for that.
Logic. Maybe you didn't, but tell me you didn't hear that from other.
No, I heard a lot of people talk about prosecuting him for the contents of that laptop. I think he should be prosecuted because it reveals because the contents of that laptop help reveal the fact that he was happy as vice president to sell our country out. But I don't want to start going down that conversation of Biden's corruption on this stream, because I don't think that's relevant to the fact that he's found guilty here. I think that the idea that we have 34 convictions of a president that people have no idea what it is that he did wrong. And if you ask anyone why was he convicted, they would say that he paid hush money to a porn star, and everyone knows that's completely legal. And that activity, and that you came late, so you missed when I said this at the very outset. Congress itself has a slush fund for both Republicans and Democrats that is designed to help cover up these different donations or payoffs to different women who come along, or I guess sometimes men perhaps, who come along claiming that they're going to expose some congressperson. They have a designated slush fund for that. No one ever hears anything about it. There's no one. There must be lots of falsifying of records because none of these payments are deemed a contribution to their respective campaigns. Why are those not deemed a contribution to their campaigns? That slush fund is donating to their campaigns and helping silence them. So it's just very hard for me to understand why Donald Trump is the only person in history who all of a sudden is getting hit for this when we know this is happening for decades with countless people in Congress, so many that we don't know because it's kept so well hidden.
And it's because
he wrote
it's
official
political.
checks with his name on it from his business, and he got
Holy
caught.
Jesus.
Brian, hold tight real quick, Brian. I'm sorry. Listen, Joe, the reality of the situation is that we should not be running political campaigns in the courtroom. And I think, you know, as somebody
100%. I agree with
not
that.
a super
100%.
fan of either, what I'm saying is essentially that one candidate is utilizing, and let's go back to
Oh, that's
when
your
Trump
point.
was
Yeah.
president.
And you gave me that point earlier. I just
The
made.
same thing. Hold on, Joe. Hold on.
It's a great point.
Let's be serious. They could have done the same thing when he was president. Let's be serious here. This is where I'll give credit. When he was running for president and talking about Hillary's
Shipwreck Crew.
and all of the different things that happened during
Shipwreck Crew said it in May. I don't understand how it would logic, but who knows?
Get arrested.
It's Judge Chuck, and she can decide whether she wants.
We have a campaign, and all of a sudden, the Democratic DAs are now launching, you know, attacks on Donald Trump during a campaign that they could have done years ago. So
That's true. He
the
did.
problem here is that we should not
But
be
so did
running
Trump,
political
arguably.
campaigns in the courtroom because it sets a dangerous precedent. And so,
But Jamal, let me ask you this: is it because they're democratic, or is it because that's what prosecutors do? They want to move up the ladder.
Let's be serious. I said it earlier, Joel. If this was not Donald Trump, they would not have prosecuted this case. This is selective prosecution right now. So let's
if
be
it was
serious.
any big name, I think they would have jumped.
They're prosecuting Senator Robert Menendez and Representative Cuellar from Texas, two Democrats. So what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, Menendez.
Actual treason, Brian. You do realize that, right?
But that's my point.
Also, Hunter Biden prosecuting
Menendez and Trump, they're just basically the same thing. It's basically the same thing right there. I mean, listen to the lunacy.
Cuellar is known to be like a moderate Democrat, almost on the Republican side, so much so that they call his chief of staff GOP Jake. Okay, so like, let's really say why they're prosecuting him.
Good question.
Yes, he did things wrong because he's a Democrat, but like, they also don't want him down there because he's a, like, they don't care because to them, he's a Democrat. I mean, he's a Republican. They're just no on Cuellar, but that's fine.
And
here's the thing: any big name, these prosecutors jump on because they want to make a name for themselves. They want to become mayors, or whatever they want to do.
Then why hasn't
this
this been done before, Joe? Why hasn't this been done before when there's been countless examples? Why did Hillary Clinton pay an $8,000 fine for dividing the country and concealing her funding of a British spy who wrote a dossier full of lies? Like, it's not true. You can say it, but it's unprecedented.
And seriously, when we go back to let's go to the facts here. The facts is if Donald Trump was not popular, let's be for real. As somebody who I've never voted for Trump, if Donald Trump was not popular and did not have strong polling numbers to be able to run for re-election again, they would have charged him. If he was just a lame duck person that they was like, please give him the nominee because we're gonna beat him easily, we would not have seen all these indictments. We would not have seen what we've seen. The reality here is that they saw what happened after Donald Trump was president.
Should I talk about this more tonight? I don't know what the heck else I'll say about this.
After that, and they saw that.
You guys want me to talk about this in my regular show? I'm kind of getting bored with this space.
Talk about the crimes that all the presidents have committed.
Let me see what you guys are saying over here in the ghetto.
Clinton had plenty of women and plenty of people on the NDAs that he paid off. This is all happened. We know this.
Just a quick one, Jamal, and I'm going to pass it right back to you. Apologies that I'm interrupting. So President Trump has posted on Truth Social, and he has said press conference tomorrow at 11 a.m. Trump Tower, Atrium, MAGA 2024. And there's a video. And he's put a
Stay
video
in the
up there in a
space.
second. Sorry, Jamal.
Time to move on.
No, I just, you know, I just think
my biggest concern is that this obliterates the fabric of our society, prosecuting political opponents, especially for trivial issues. This is what happens before functions of government erodes in significance. Yep.
Besides the two. But let's be serious. We should not be running political campaigns in a courtroom. If they can beat him at the ballot box. But obviously, they can't do that. So let's see how they play things from now until November, because Joe Biden can decide to try to weaponize the felon title and think that's going to win him an election.
Well,
or
Jamal,
he can actually do something.
You all have been saying that this is going to clinch the election for Trump. So really, what does it hurt, right? Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, Sarah, I was actually going to talk about that. Like, I think either way he's going to win here, but here's where it gets tricky. There is a law on the books. I think it's 3 felonies, right? And he has other charges coming up. 3 felonies, he's in prison. I think I forget if it's life or 25 years, something like that. If someone knows, please tell me. He has other charges. Like, I think all these cases, regardless of the answer, is going to help him. He knows how to galvanize his base. Unless it comes down to 3 things, then things change drastically. But they won't happen before the election, so he's safe.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to happen before November. So, I do think we're going to see, Trump being president again, regardless of what happens.
And I doubt they want to keep trying cases and doing what they're doing if he becomes president. So all of this, we really now have from now until November to see, what actually is going to happen. But none of these other cases are going to fall.
Yeah, let me give you another example here. 1996, the Skylight Buddhist Temple in California. Al Gore holds a luncheon there, and they raise some $65,000 or more. This is what you might have referred to if you heard back, if you were around then, as Chinagate. And basically, it was an orchestrated piece where they bundled funds from these Buddhist monks who were reimbursed by the temple to give to the DNC for Al Gore. Okay, and it was completely illegal. There were a lot of hoopla around it. There was a conviction. Mariah Chai, I think her name was. I think she spent like 90 days in home detention. John Huang was another guy. James Riotti. They all pleaded guilty to different, felony conspiracy charges. They had to pay a fine. James Riotti, the most popular one, pleaded guilty. He was defrauded. I think he had like $8.9 million. They was sentenced to probation. I mean, these are not serious charges. They do carry felony weight, and that's really, it's like what it is. But again, most of these, and I've seen dozens of FEC violations, never come to any sort of conviction, never come to anything but a slap on the wrist. And so this is just completely unprecedented in many ways. So I think, look, there are other lawsuits out there that are far more concerning to me. And it's unfortunate we didn't have time to hear those. But at the same time, I'm like, look, I like things being decided in the ballot box and not in the courtroom.
Can I answer the legal question that Joa asked or implied about the 3 strikes? He was. I mean, Joe raised the question about 3 strikes law and whether that could end up applying to Trump on a federal level. You have to be engaged. The 3 strikes law relates to violent felonies. There are 3 strikes laws across the country in different jurisdictions. It does not seem likely that any of them would remotely apply, even if you were in a situation that he was convicted of every charge that's currently pending against him. Because it's not like Georgia ends up applying the strike from a Washington D.C. conviction. I don't believe that to be the case, and it certainly would not apply on a federal level, because on a federal level it has to include violent crimes, and none of these charges include any sort of violence. So I hope that helps clarify that question for anyone who has similar question, Joe.
But good logic, isn't it? Aggravated felony, isn't it also anything over $10,000 involving over $10,000?
No,
so
on the federal level, the sentence enhancement, which is section 3559C, I'm looking at it now. It's called serious violent felony. I don't think that the amount of I don't think the amount that's being hit as a penalty plays into this. I think it has to qualify as a violent felony, and obviously qualifications for how you classify that. But it's difficult to conceive that any of these crimes he's charged with would qualify as a serious violent felony, and it would be the 4th charge anyway. And it has to be different convictions, also not the same incident. I don't believe this sentence enhancement is going to end up being relevant at any time to Donald Trump based on any charges that have been levied so far. That's just my professional opinion. I'm not a criminal defense attorney. I'm not a prosecutor. I'm just a lawyer from New York, a litigator from New York. But I don't foresee how it's going to have any bearing on Trump. That's my personal opinion.
So just a quick one, guys. I'm just going to read this statement. This is from Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis has made a statement about the verdict that we heard today. Ron DeSantis' statement on Trump guilty verdict. Today's verdict represents the culmination of a legal process that has been bent to the political will of the actors involved. A leftist prosecutor, a partisan judge, and a jury reflective of one of the most liberal enclaves in America, all in one effort to get Trump. Thus, this case involving alleged misdemeanor business record violations for nearly a decade even brought is a testament to the political displacement of the justice system in places like New York City. This is especially true considering the same district attorney routinely excuses criminal conduct in a way that has endangered law-abiding citizens in his jurisdiction. It is often said that no one is above the law, but it is also true that no one is below the law. If the defendant were not Donald Trump, this case would never have been brought. The judge would never have issued similar rulings, and the jury would never have returned a guilty verdict. In America, the rule of law should be applied in a dispassionate, even-handed manner, not become captive to the political agenda of some kangaroo court. Prodigal
I like this idea. I like the idea.
Agree with that. Go ahead, Prodigal.
I like this a lot.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to it. I believe it's true. I mean, Joe can say whatever he wants, but this hasn't occurred. This type of politicalization and weaponization of the process. I mean, Bill Clinton had classified documents in his sock drawer. Hillary Clinton basically deleted and eliminated multiple classified documents, and it came out later through Anthony Weiner, the sex offender's laptop, that there were even more that they didn't disclose. Biden was essentially found guilty, but Robert Hur said that this guy's a senile old man and the jury will take pity and it's not worth pursuing this. So anybody who talks about this as if this is an objective, nonpartisan application of law is just lying to your face, and you should remember that.
You know, an irony here is that Governor DeSantis may actually be the deciding factor whether Donald Trump can vote for himself in November. I think the Florida law, as I understand it, is that they will acknowledge a felony in another state and apply their no voting rule felony in Florida. The governor can, I believe, overrule that. I may be mistaken, but that would be an interesting irony there.
That would be hilarious.
It would indeed. Let me go to Fadi. Go ahead, Fadi. Jump in.
What's good, Sully? How you been, man?
I'm doing good. How's things?
We all got to move to Florida.
Amazing. You know, like, as you guys kind of all know, I work in kind of like a black industry, whether it's sports or music related. And since the guilty verdict has come out, a lot of my black friends, a lot of my black clients, whether it's in music or sports, have been texting me, calling me. And the thing that they are all kind of sharing is that this has been happening to black men for decades, to be wrongfully prosecuted, et cetera, which I absolutely agree with. Donald Trump brought this to the forefront for the rest of the world to see. And it's not wrong. It's absolute bullshit to be wrongly prosecuted across the board in any aspect as an American citizen. This is not Iraq. This is not Afghanistan. This ain't Kim Jong-un or some shit like that. This is the United States of America. And for anybody that is cheering this sort of shit on, I swear to you, when it happens to you, you'll be the first person on these spaces crying your ass off. And that's what nobody understands. Everybody thinks that this is only happening to just Donald Trump. There's, how many people are in here? There's 16,000 plus people in this damn space right now.
That's not me.
I think you cut off. Can we hear?
No, you cut off. I would say, I'm piggybacking on this point. I think in general with the conviction, that might happen. Not convicted yet, by the way. I would say that with this news, I think
it seems very fishy to me. Sorry, Fadi, you broke off for like a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. Where I was kind of saying is a lot of my black clients and friends.
Oh God, don't start over.
They all reached out
to voice their
We heard that
displeasure
part.
and voice their the fact that black men in this country have been wrongfully prosecuted
He's starting all
decades. Decades. You know, everyone wants to talk about the, you know, just look back to Rodney
Oh my
King.
God.
Same shit happened. Every person in this.
Okay. Well, it sounded really. Well, that was sounding.
He keeps cutting off.
Yeah, fair enough. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah,
Paddy, you need to sort your mic out because you've cut off like 4 times. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, I would say this again. Like this, you know, the news that we had today is going to help Trump in terms of turnout with his own base. Independents, I think, you know, it's a bit tough in terms of how they, you know, value, you know, mainstream outlets and what they think of Trump and their, I guess, idea of if the trial was okay or if it was slanted or not. I wasn't sure if Nick had any idea in terms of how the news today might impact the base or even independents, and I guess how it might help or hurt him.
I think
in
I'm
some
getting bored.
areas.
Yeah, I'm getting bored. Okay.
Not sure if Nick, are you there? Nick?
Yeah, I think he's gone.
Okay, we'll go to Joe. Let me ask you a question, right? I know you want to jump in on something.
All right, I think I'm going to bust out of here. All right. Any thoughts about what you want me to cover tonight? Otherwise, I'm probably going to have a call in. I'm not going to talk about this all night long. Talk about rackets. Covered Trump. A time to love, a time to hate, a time for peace. What time are we in or heading toward? Depends on the election. Blanche is on Jesse Waters at 8. What? Nick just subscribed? Did he really? That's not true. He didn't just subscribe. Did he really just subscribe? It's possible, I guess. I don't see it. Let's see. He didn't subscribe. You're pulling my leg. I'm trying to get his $50 so bad. So bad over on goodlogic.locals.com. Trying to get Nick's $50. Figure if I put post after post, eventually he has to, right? He has to. All right. Time for me to shut down here. Well, I thank you all for joining me. I think that this is ultimately great news for the election. I think that we're definitely going to see a Trump win right now. And I will certainly keep you updated on that. I'm probably going to end up having a call-in show tonight, but I'm not sure. Maybe I'll cover some topics. I'll go poking around. I have an hour or so to try figuring that out. I will see you all, I don't know, what, 2 hours or so? If I start on time, might start a little late. We'll see. You'll find out at goodlogic.locals.com. I'm almost at 98. Am I at 98,000? Am I at 98,000? Am I at 98,000 yet? I might be at 98. I don't know. I was at 97.9 this morning. Am I 98 yet? Does that happen? Nope, still 97.9. So close. We'll get to 98 tonight, hopefully. All right. I will see you all in a couple hours. Until then, take care of yourselves. And as I'm going to leave that space in a second. And as always, Godspeed.